convene the Pueblo West Metropolitan District November 10th meeting. We'll start off with a invocation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You'll bow your heads with me, please. Father, we come before you thanking you for all you do for us. Let us remember that this month is the month of Thanksgiving. So tonight, we would like to give thanks to all the veterans in the room for their service as we celebrate Veterans Day tomorrow. Let us give thanks for our families that we're so blessed with, this community that we're able to serve. We're ever so grateful. We ask you to lead us and guide us through tonight's meeting. As we come to the end of this year, we ask you that as we close everything up and we look to the future to finish up the things that are needed this year and the future of next year. And I pray that you give this board the vision for next year. So we thank you for tonight's meeting and for everyone who's in attendance. Bless them, bless our families the rest of this year for the future that is to come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, Pledge of Allegiance. Greg, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to public comments.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Brianne Mignoni, District Clerk. We have one that's been submitted online and we have two that signed up, but I'll read the one that's online first. It comes from Nick Madero. Board, I've been listening to the board meetings and recently a topic was brought up regarding security. It seems as though some of you have surely taken leave of your senses. While I do believe it would be helpful, it doesn't prevent evil from doing evil things. The problem most people have with this idea is spending more taxpayer dollars, especially when we have to constantly hear board members speak about being fiscally responsible. By the way, building a pool while not securing 6-day permanent funding that could put the district's future in the hole isn't being fiscally responsible either. However, after working some numbers, a board member at the low end is making approximately $1,500 per year. Multiply that by 5, and that comes to $7,500, which would be more than enough to cover the $6,500 needed for security. Would this board be willing to donate their salary for the security of these meetings? If the answer is no, kindly close the orifices from hence that nonsense flows. Nick Madero, 1348 West Alta Hacienda Drive, Pueblo West, Colorado, 81007. And then we have two that signed up in person. We've got June Heron, and she is looking at the water. I can't read it, I'm sorry.
A meter for agricultural use.
A meter for agricultural use. And so we have her signed up first. Would you like to come up to the speaker, please?
And Bree,
I think I can talk loud enough without that mic.
we
That's for the online, so they can
Oh,
use that.
okay. My question to you is, many years ago when I moved here, when you landscaped your home, you had to put so many bushes, so many trees for your landscaping. At that time, it was feasible. Everybody wanted to bring their house up so it looked presentable. Now most people are putting xeriscapes out, while I still have trees, grass, and bushes I have to water. Someone gave me a buzz in my ear a little while ago about putting a second water meter on my house that was used just for where I water my trees, grass, and plants from. I'm asking if that is still a feasible thing to do. Would that assist in the cost of my water and my sewer?
Jim? Is he-
Thank you. We would have to look at that. Usually, oh boy.
Yeah, come up and join me, sir.
We would have to look at that. However, I think we could work with her and maybe help her out on some of the vegetation that she has for water conservation purposes. We usually don't have a second meter for irrigation except for commercial applications and not for residential. So we'd have to look into that a little bit deeper, and I'll give you my name and number.
That would be excellent, sir. Yes, I'm totally concerned because I have neighbors who care less about their lots. At my age, living on a fixed income, I am trying to keep Pueblo West as pretty as it is when I moved here 33 years ago. So whatever you could help me with, sir, would be a blessing. Thank you, sir.
Bree, what I was gonna say was there was a couple of people that didn't see the sign up or didn't get there on time, and I was hoping we could make, time for them to make their comments. Is that okay?
Do you know if they were signed up for the overall comments or for a public hearing specifically? I guess this is a,
Did you want to talk about the hearing, or did you just want to make a comment?
I just want to make a comment.
Would you like him to go after Mr. Mahaney?
If you could, please. Thank you.
The next one signed up is Mr. Joe Mahaney, and his is about the water hearing and citizen comment regular. Would you like to come up?
Now, is this the, normally, and as I recall, when we had a hearing, you would adjourn the regular meeting and have a hearing or say, this is specific hearing,
This is not the hearing. This is just public
This is-
comments for the meeting.
just public comment.
If you have something to say for the hearing, then you can do that during the hearing.
Okay, that's what I'm here for.
But, okay.
and just for everybody's awareness, yeah, this one will be public comment general. Then there's two public hearings, one for the proposed budget and one for the water and sewer rates. During each one of them, there'll be a introduction by a staff member, potentially a presentation. The public hearing will then be open for any comments. Then we'll invite anybody to be able to make their comments. Then we'll have any director's comments and then close out each individual hearing before moving on. Just for everybody's awareness.
Thank you, Christian.
And then, sir, would you like to make your comment?
Yeah, I'm Bill Thompson on Acorn Drive. And I was here for the water hearing, the meeting we had a few days ago. And Joe Mahaney, I didn't know it was just going to be about water structure, prices and everything. And I had my water bill with me. Well, I didn't want to bring that up during that meeting. Joe took my water bill and gave it to Jim Blasing. I've known Blasing since he came here. He's done a great job. He's brought a lot of things to Pueblo West, and he brought a lot of intervention. He's found most of the leaks by things that he's brought. Leaks that Pueblo West could never get fixed. I know there's several on our street. And he got them fixed because he found them. He took the time and the equipment. And he looked at my water bill, and there's been a charge on there. We didn't know what it was. He didn't know what it was. So he took it to Brenda. Brenda took the time to look all that stuff up. She didn't have to go back to when I bought the house because of inaccurate billing and people who were taking care of things in Pueblo West back then. Anyway, she got me with Jim and Joe's help, got it straight, and hopefully it'll keep going. These are the kind of people. I know Jim's going to retire soon. I hate to see him go. I did not like him when he came here. Because he took the place of somebody that I did like. But after getting to know him, and he came by and he kept seeing these gallons of water pumping out into my yard, And that happened for almost 2 or 3 years. Oh, well, there's no leak. Where's it coming from? Jim found them. You need more employees like him and a better hiring system. I don't know if you have a a time period that, yeah. I didn't know if you had a probationary period for these different employees, whether they're ditch diggers or IT professionals. But they need that, because a lot of these people are getting in that shouldn't be in. But I wanted to let you know Jim, and he's gonna really be missed. And Joe, who I already miss. And Bill.
I'm still here.
Yeah, but not long. So, anyway, that's about all I had to say. I do want those people to, because I know you can fill out a piece of paper and send it in, yeah, these people did great, and they never hear about it. Brenda isn't here tonight, and I hope she hears about it, because she went beyond what I would have. She could have just said, oh, okay, we'll give you credit for this. No, she went back a number of years, and it was a very good credit. Okay. That's all I
Thank you.
got to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And that's it. All right, thank you. Next is director's comments. Mr. Pasternak?
No comment.
Mr. Potter?
I'm good for now, thank you.
I just want to say thank you and recognize all of the veterans out there, especially those still serving in our Metro District employee base. And I know a lot of times it seems that the community falls short in recognition of our veterans, but I just want to take that extra step to bring them up tonight. Sacrifices made and lives lost. Same thing with our fire department, our police department, and all of our other agencies that are critical to our life safety needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no comments at this time. So we'll move on into the approval of the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah. Excuse me. I'd just like to make approve the consent agenda with a minor change to the October 13 minutes under the board member closing comments. Under my name, it says Director Pasternak requested that staff provide a comparison of Pueblo Regional Building Department versus Pueblo County services and emphasize the need to first confirm whether Pueblo West, let me go back. Director Pasternak requested that staff provide a comparison of Pueblo Regional Building Department versus Pueblo County services, period there. That was the end of my comments. And then the next part of that sentence says, emphasize the need to first confirm whether Pueblo West can legally enter into its own IGA. That was Director Axworthy. And then the next, through the end of that, was Director Roberts, as I recall this. So that section says, he noted that Pueblo County appears technologically advanced and ready to provide services, while Pueblo Regional seems to be adjusting after the disassociation. He also commented that competition could drive innovation, but raised concerns about inspector availability and past negative experiences.
Okay.
And Director Pasternak shared that information with us. We're tracking it, and we can make that adjustment if approved tonight.
Okay. Pardon me?
I need a second.
Oh, second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, introduction of new employees. by Jessica Pankey.
All right, good evening, President Vickers and fellow members of the board. I am here to introduce those that we hired last month in October. Unfortunately, I was not lucky enough to get them here tonight, so they are shown for you up on the TVs. So that first picture is Kyle Gross. He was hired on October 22nd. And he comes to us with an associate's degree from Tidewater Community College in horticultural crop production. Most recently, Kyle held the position of ordnance tech and a plant operator with Amentum. Kyle also previously was a corporal for the U.S. Marine Corps, and so that was the very first one that we were showing you. The one we are showing you now, that is Pashan, and I'm gonna butcher his last name, but it's Vasogi, I think. And he started with us on October 20th and obtained his high school diploma from Plainfield High School, and most recently worked as a control room operator for the PCAP project. And he also held the position of ordnance tech before becoming the control room operator. And the third one that we have for you is Thomas Wagner. That is his picture there. He also started on October 22nd. He holds his high school diploma from East High School and also attended some college from Adams State University. He most recently worked for Pueblo Water Works as a water treatment operator assistant and also worked in the meter services. So we welcome all three of them to the team and are excited to have them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go into the public hearings, and we'll start off with the 2026 budget. That would be Ms. Karen Cordova.
Good evening, President Vickers and Pueblo West Metro Board. This evening, I would like to take a moment to talk about some changes to the proposed budget and have any questions, answer any questions you may have about the budget. The first item I'd like to bring to your attention is we had a error in the salaries by position. We flip-flopped two positions, the project development manager and the project manager positions. So those two positions are flip-flopped in the listing. So I've corrected those.
Where would that be, Karen, in our,
Probably about section 24, 5.
And just to add and clarify, that's the positions as listed based on all the positions authorized within the district. And it's an administrative error. It's just the
Yes.
flip of the names, not an actual change to any of the cost.
It was, yeah, the salaries are in the wrong line items. So that's page 25 dash, yeah,
It's one of the last, if you have your budget
Two.
book, it's one of the last.
25 dash 2.
in,
And it would actually be on 25 dash 3.
and what are we flipping?
Project development manager and project manager, those salaries were flip-flopped.
So the 78,950 goes to the 81,317?
Yes.
And vice versa.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Okay, and in the general fund, we had expenditures of, page. Total expenses of $18,326,224, and that's on page 4-1. And to that, I would like to add increased expenditures of $36,098. And the reason for that is we did not add an amount for the capital policy implementation plan, and that's part of the strategic plan. We're estimating that to cost about $18,000. We also added $1,000 for advertising for the fire sales tax videos. And project development has asked that we change one position for another. So they wanted to delete the stormwater inspector, which would have been a new position in 2026. And that was budgeted at $75,600. And they wanted to add a project manager in its place, and that is budgeted at $90,778. And the tax increases, there's the difference of that plus the increase in tax and benefits would be a total of $15,178.
What was the total again? 36?
15,001, oh, the total, 36,098.
And that's made up of the 3 or 4 things that you listed?
It's the
capital improvement policy, the
advertising,
fire sales tax, and then the
difference-
benefits for the personnel, or the cost for the personnel.
Salary and benefits, yeah.
change. And to add context, we currently have 3 project managers, authorized positions. What originally operational support was asking to do was add a 4th position that was going to be specifically a stormwater inspector coordinator, looking at our MS4 and our stormwater program. What they've asked at looking at all the capital projects we have and continuously evaluating how many projects that we have had since we started the program, they've asked instead to change that into a 4th project manager position, which has that salary difference. So that way they can better be able to encompass all the capital projects the district is doing while distributing that stormwater responsibility amongst the 4. So it allows a little bit of flexibility of how they're able to approach that, while also more project managers for the amount of projects that we've had, because we recognize there is still that rollover happening year to year that we think that it will help with.
Okay, I'll continue. In the water fund, the water department has asked that we increase their revenue. Per an update, rate analysis received by the water department, increases for connection fees were not included in the proposed budget. So they asked that I increase the water fund by $4,595,000 and increase the wastewater fund $435,000.
And those are reflective of the proposed budget, or sorry, proposed rates you'll hear in the next public hearing that hadn't been caught yet, or hadn't been included because the analysis came concurrently as we were doing the 2026 proposed budget.
That's the water enterprise?
Yes, water and wastewater. Water is $4,595,000. Wastewater is $435,000. Now,
And are these due to capital fund, capital project?
no.
No.
This is, in their rate analysis, they realized that they did not include this revenue in their initial
Oh.
proposed budget.
Okay.
Are there any questions, or Christian, you want
Yeah,
to?
before, apologize. Christian J. Hine, District Manager for Boulder West. I did want to respond, share some answers to some questions that Vice President Axworthy had asked us. He actually came by, I think, not last week, but the week before, asked a couple questions about the budget. We appreciate that, both obviously the due diligence in looking at it, and also sharing some of those questions, so that way we could provide that tonight. But after this, obviously, if there are questions or anything that we either can answer tonight or have to follow up with, still time to do that. But yes, a couple questions. One of them was about the compensation ratio and changes to salary costs between the 2 budgets. Excuse me. To share, notable question arose regarding the substantial changes observed in projected salary costs across several departments. We wanted to be clear that these initial projections do not reflect actual confirmed cost increases for employee compensation, but rather an exercise in conservative budget planning that has since been refined. Outside of benefits and any changes to rates, the only increase to salaries is actually at the 2.2% cost of living adjustment. The initial budget projection included a 1.05 compensation ratio estimate. This elevated estimate was intentionally implemented to account for potential unknowns and unanticipated fluctuations related to the integration and functionality of both our budgeting and accounting software and the program in place. There's a forward-looking financial buffer intended to ensure that we could respond to any internal salary changes or administrative adjustments needed within the budget year without requiring immediate appropriation adjustments. After a comprehensive review and further consideration of current trends and our software stability, we have determined that this compensation ratio estimate was too high for the final proposal. We're considering evaluating a 1.0 compensation ratio estimate to reduce the projection, have identified at least one area for cost allocation correction in the 2026 budget. And I think for the personnel costs, that's effectively essentially a 5% decrease you'll see in the proposed budget, just based on that. So again, no actual cost increases were expected or anticipated. Those were budgeting expectations, anticipating if there could be while we're still working within both the software system and the program. Second question he asked, the proposed increase in safety expenses is, it appears from year to year or from 2025 budget to 2026, that there were some substantial changes. So the proposed increase in safety expenses, which we reviewed, the personnel costs, we get a little bit less due diligent in the committee, the budget committee itself. But the next two, the safety expenses and the maintenance and lease costs, were actually discussed during the budget committee. So some of those did have the review. But to share a little bit of the explanation with the public and the board, the funds are predominantly dedicated to securing vital personal protective equipment and necessary departmental safety needs. The goal is to aggressively reduce the district's experience modification rate, which is EMOD score. The EMOD is a direct factor used by insurance carriers to calculate workers' compensation premiums. Improving this rate directly translates to reduced insurance costs over time. At this time, we're anticipating that our EMOD is going to increase going into 2026 as a result of the last few years of incidents. Proactive investment can help reduce our long-term risk and costs associated with a workplace incidents. It's also important to note that many of these safety expenditures are not carried entirely by the district. Through our established safety program, we consistently receive full or partial reimbursement through safety grants, example often ranging between $25,000 to $50,000 annually. This reimbursement mechanism significantly mitigates the net impact of the initial budget expense, making these costs a little bit more efficient and necessary investment in employee welfare and long-term fiscal health. And the last one, we have facility maintenance and equipment and vehicle leases where he annotated that there were increases from 2025 to 2026. The maintenance costs, the facility ones, can be notoriously difficult to predict year over year. Repairs can be inconsistent from facility to facility based on unpredictable wear and tear, age of infrastructure, and emergent needs. Our maintenance operation team had been continuously refining these projections by analyzing historical data and facility condition assessments. Remain committed to the diligent monitoring of it, and we do have to recognize that as we either acquire or construct new facilities, those maintenance costs can often be projected higher until more historical data is available to evaluate and adjust. The equipment and vehicle leases, we actually did discuss this previously. With leased vehicles, as we take new ones on, there's an increase in projected lease costs that reflect a capitalized price reduction. So more in layman's terms, a down payment. We're able to do a down payment for a new vehicle to reduce the long-term annual or monthly lease expenses that occur from it. So those were included in both next year's budget, and we actually had to reflect and as part of the budget amendment coming forward for this budget. So that's just something that we caught this year going forward. So those were some of the questions he asked. Again, really appreciated it and shared it. I did also share the answers with him previously since he could not be here tonight. He seemed appreciative of it. So just wanted to add that before we open it up for either the public hearing or discussion with the board.
Well, I think we should do the public first and then the board can discuss.
Fair enough.
If that's okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so anybody that wants to speak, Mr. Mahaney, I know you wanted to speak about the budget or wastewater? Or both, okay. You want to do that now?
Am I the only one?
I don't know. Is there anybody else here that wants to speak towards it?
Joe Mahaney, 159 West Mangrum Court, Pueblo West. The budget is kind of a confusing thing to most people, and very confusing to me. But being that aside, I guess that's my shortcoming. When I was on the board, I asked for a lot of information and got a weekly report of cash expenditures. Example would be American Fertilizer out here sent us an invoice for a couple pallets of weed spray, so many dollars. And I actually read through all of those, and it's amazing how much money we spend every week. $250,000 a week, something in that range. But once a month, there was a real confusing entry in there. Now, these were invoices, records of invoices, and I wonder, is anybody on the board looking at those currently?
I look at them.
I'd suggest that somebody look into it. But there's one that's specific. The left-hand column is the person or entity that generates the invoice, American Fertilizer. At the end of the month, every year, every month, there's a whole series of invoices where Pueblo West Metro invoices the water enterprise. Now, and it lists them, there's always an address. And it was explained to me that that is all of the metered water that is used by the district. It seems like the water enterprise should be invoicing the Metro District, not the other way around. And when I looked into it further, there was one that really confused me. It was, the address of it was 20
West Palmer Lake.
West Palmer Lake, yeah. And it was a huge bill. The total of all these metered water bills runs anywhere from 28 to 50,000 a month. So you're looking at something about $500,000. And one of the big ones at Palmer Lake is the water plant up here. And it's, what is this for? Well, as was explained to me, my response was, that's a good kindergarten answer. Now, what's the truth? What the hell is going on? It was explained to me that the water department is billed by the Metro District for the water that dilutes the chlorine. Now, wait a minute. That's a chlorination process where the plant, the last step before the water goes out into the pipelines, is it's chlorinated. And you have to meter the water coming from the filter plant into the chlorination area to decide how much chlorine to put in it. Now, why is the water department being billed for all the water that goes out through the plant? Now, there's several others in there. There's another billing within the water plant that bills the water that they send from each of the filtration bays into the lab. That water isn't wasted, it isn't turned to the sewer, it's returned back into the system. It's just an easy, convenient way rather than have a lab tech go out and dip a bucket in each one of the filter systems. It would be real easy to assume that all of those bills are a way to transfer the cost that should be attributed to the water or to the general fund for things like watering the dog park or Lovell Park or those kinds of things, which are included in these bills that the Metro District bills the water enterprise for. It's just a way to, it appears to be a way to pad the budget. And granted, you 4 people in Axworthy as a group, you can decide to do that. You can decide that the water enterprise is supposed to be a separate enterprise, supposed to be totally standalone, but you can decide that it will supply water for free to Lovell Park, to the swimming pool, golf course, whatever they want to do. But to actually bill the water department for something that they produce, that seems a little beyond property. Please, guys, look into that. And if you want to do it, at least let's be transparent and make it public. That's what we do. And I wouldn't like to hear the excuse, the reason we do that is because City of Pueblo, their city park gets free water. That explanation is totally bogus because the City of Pueblo owns City Park and they own 200 shares of the Bessemer Ditch, and City Park is irrigated by non-potable water. It never gets involved with the potable water system that the Pueblo Water Board produces. So you're comparing apples to oranges as an excuse for doing something that's a little bit under the table.
lot of information there, and yeah, you piqued my curiosity. I've known, about transfers for back and forth, but, Brian, Christian? give
So
us-
I can share.
Give us an idea, and I wouldn't mind looking into it more,
Of course.
more in
I'll
depth.
invite any board member who would like to go and sit down and discuss this, because what Joe is describing is the accountability of the water treatment plant, the filter, any of the use of the water department for water is being metered and then charged in such a way that the collection of that revenue does go through a general fund and back to the water department. So yes, there is that expenditure, but there's also the revenue coming back to them. They're essentially paying themselves. And the reason for that is an accountability of the water actually being used. So there is a journal entry and an accounting process for which we can show how that transfer takes place. It's a net zero whenever it's the water department themselves using that water, but it just accounts for the actual water being used. Things like the parks, and you'll see it in the budget, and you would see it in those same journal entries, is accounted for as being paid by the general fund in the parks department for the water they used. You can see it on, I believe it's page.
So in essence,
Not-
the
I'm
parks,
sorry.
waters,
Yeah, so page 9, TAC 5, within the budget, you would see utilities for 01-409-8020 for the water use of the Parks Department. And you can see audited, estimated, and proposed. And actually, we had thought it was gonna be about $300,000 per year to water the parks, and that expense would be coming out of the general fund from that line. Estimated in 2025, as you can see, was about 80,000. So we do not, that, as you said, the excuse that the city does it, so we should do it too. During Joe's time with the board, we actually had a discussion about that and changed that, because it wasn't a formal policy. So now the Parks Department does pay for its water. And then when he's talking about, as far as that accounting procedure, it is a bit confusing, not disagreeing with Joe about that, but there is a process we can show you and happy to sit down and discuss it.
so in essence, what happens is that in the parks fund, their budget, they have budgeted $70,000 for water.
Yes, or in
So-
this case, 300,000.
That's general fund money that then goes to the water,
Yes,
wastewater.
as that
enterprise.
park uses water, the Parks Department uses water, they're getting charged based on the meter that's calculating how much they're using, and it's going to the water enterprise.
So with the closure of the swim pool this year, how much water did we save and how much money did we save?
We can find that out. I don't know off the top of my head. There was some savings with that.
Interesting facts that you provide there, Joe. I'd be willing to dive into it a little deeper.
Oh, go ahead.
On the surface, I don't understand why our metro district is paying for our water when we could just simply provide it, so, I can get a better explanation of that later, from everybody else, unless somebody can provide that tonight.
I think the answer, as far as why we do it, is that accountability tool to show water
We
being
can
used.
still meter and not pay for it, though.
But to show that it's being used and there's actual payment process towards it, that's how you can account for it transparently within a process. So if a core request came in, for instance, it could find that information and show that money transferred. It's convoluted because of the accountability of essentially a general fund and an enterprise fund, both operating within the district. But it is essentially the enterprise fund just correctly being shown how much water they use and how much they would otherwise be paying if they were the same users.
But our water within the metro district is a joint asset of the metro district in its entirety.
Yes, but it's an enterprise specifically separate from the general fund that is actually charged with doing it, and the rates then are allowed to be able to be adjusted to ensure that enterprise is operating. When it comes to cost allocation, that is actually transparently within the budget book about which funds have a cost allocation broken out, meaning that there is, for instance, our finance department, there is a cost allocation for them to be served by both the general fund, the water enterprise fund, and the wastewater enterprise fund, because all three of them use the finance department service. If the enterprise stands alone, meaning it's separate from our district, it would have its own finance team, accounting technicians, likely a finance manager or finance director involved with it too. So there is that cost sharing that happens there, and that is in the budget book, but that's not the water bills being paid.
Still learning.
Why is the,
Well,
20
When
sorry,
it's
go
all,
ahead.
before it's all said and done, when that invoice goes across the first time, it appears in the water enterprise budget as an expense. That's an excuse, and I'll use the word excuse, to raise the readiness to serve fees and all the other fees that the ratepayers pay to deliver water to the district as a whole. Without that, if it was given away for free, then there wouldn't be as much expense involved, and they couldn't justify the increase in the readiness to serve fee or the water availability fee or whatever.
So you're saying, and I haven't looked at that specific scenario. It shows up as an expense to it should show up as an expense to the recreation fund and a revenue to the water, if I'm not mistaken.
I think what Joe's talking about is the expenses or the water being metered through the actual water treatment plant, in which there is an expense associated with that, but there's a matching revenue associated. It's a net zero, meaning if they, let's say in a month, the water plant uses and would be charged $20,000, there is that check, there is that accounting for $20,000 being paid out, an expense incurred on the water enterprise. But there's also a revenue in the water enterprise for $20,000 as well, as an example. So it is a net zero. So seeing that net zero means that that would not reflect in the analysis that was done for the rates, showing that you need to increase to maintain or increase it to be able to maintain a higher revenue projection, since it's costing itself out or netting zero. But the parks one, yeah, you would see a revenue essentially on the a revenue on the water enterprise and expense on the parks. Which you do see the expense very clearly in the budget.
Which those funds are really used, I mean, that's like paying, that goes to the water enterprise fund and does not end up back in the general
Correct.
fund, correct? No.
So essentially, it's a shell game.
It's accounting for water use by which fund uses it to ensure that it's costed out. The only thing, and I agree with Joe, is the confusion of the water department essentially writing a invoice for itself to pay itself. That is understandably a circle of it, but it shows accountability of the water used and the water paid. And there's no cost or difference for the water department to do that.
Is there any way to modify that to alleviate the confusion?
We can always have discussion, look at it, but I think the response and the discussion we've had previously, which I think we've spent probably 4+ hours having this discussion about it to ensure we understand it, or try to, has yielded that that's probably the best way to maintain transparency and accountability of water used and water costs. But we're always open to discussion on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's, would probably fall under the category of generally accepted accounting procedures. And for those of us that have some age on us, you might remember Enron Corporation used generally accepted accounting procedures, and people went to jail over abusing that confusion that they created within their own books, from department to department, here and there and around and everything. I'm not implying that that's going on here, but I am saying it's confusing the way it's done. And it leads, when somebody answers the question that we're diluting the chlorine, which is just totally ass backwards. You're putting chlorine in the water as the final treatment. You're not diluting the chlorine. You're adding chlorine to the whole flow of the whole system. You're purifying it, sanitizing it. The lady back here suggested that she get a separate meter so she can water her bushes. I wouldn't recommend that she look into it, because the readiness to serve fees and all that on a separate meter would be way more than you'd use watering a whole forest of trees. But there are already situations where one house has 2 meters, one to water trees and one to water domestic use. And this irrigation rate now, on the tabulation that we're gonna discuss for next year's budget, or next year's water rate, which determines a lot of the budget, there's an irrigation rate in there.
So can we keep that confined to the water hearing, so we're not bleeding over? I mean, I want you to finish but let's stay with the budget right now, and then we'll move to the
All right.
water
All right,
fees, just for continuity.
fair enough.
I'm confused enough.
Good.
And I do agree with you. It is confusing, when you look at this, it is confusing. Little difficult to track. I feel you, man. Okay, Karen, you gonna clarify some things?
Yes, I am. Okay, Karen Cordova, Finance Director, and I would like to clarify a couple of things that Joe just stated. First of all, I've never had a conversation about any type of chlorine with him because
Stand
that's
by.
not my field.
Sorry, Karen. Joe?
Thank you.
So I'm not sure what the chlorine conversation is, but to give you a kindergarten answer, for example, 63 Spalding receives a water bill because they have a meter, just like your home. You got to pay that bill. So accounts payable writes out a check payable to water for the bill. So 63 Spalding allocates all the expenses to the department. We get a water expense every month, and water gets revenue. That's the kindergarten answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to speak out? Forever hold your peace? What's that?
Technically not forever.
Not forever. So, we're gonna ask the board if they have input at
Yeah,
this point? Or
yes.
do you wanna do that later?
Oh, no, you can do it now.
Okay, so, we'll open it up. Concerns, questions? You want me to start? You want, what? I'll start, and then you guys can go on from there. I do, in the water rate increase and the budget, I find some things that concern me. And for clarification on the salary increases, what you had said earlier, so those proposed salary increases are not necessarily set in stone? That's not something that's necessarily going to happen?
What I was specifically referring to is in the budget, there's only one actual cost increase associated with the projections going up. Outside of benefits, there are benefit increases, but talking about the salaries, that's the 2.2% cost of living increase. Everything else that you're seeing, why it's above that, is that as we were looking at the overall salary, new software system, and identifying the new program with a compa ratio rubric, there we had probably overestimated a budget number to ensure that we had hopefully a conservative approach to understand if there was changes to the pays as they were going throughout the year. However, as we reviewed it, and as Axworthy had, or Vice President Axworthy had identified, it seemed pretty high, and so when we took another look at it, we are recognizing that it probably is much higher. It's not an actual reflection of costs that are going to happen next year, but the budgeted number is probably higher than we should need to be able to cover those same precautions or same conservative approach for it if there are changes. That can be everything as far as that buffer to account for personnel who leave and come, meaning you might have an employee who is paid on the low end of their salary range leave and another employee who comes in at the high end. We used to historically do their actuals. This way is allowing us to ensure that there is that flexibility for, I think, the gentleman who talked about our hiring process. Historically, have been very challenging sometimes to hire people because we would only offer the minimum of that salary range, and there was very little room for moving up, and that could affect what quality of employee that you'd be able to attract based on that. The new program with compa ratio allows us to have that flexibility to both hire and understand what those costs associated with employees over the long term of their employment with Pueblo West. I know that is a lot of verbiage, so to sum up compa ratio for those who haven't heard it, min to max of a salary range, let's say it's 80,000 to 120,000 for a salary range. The way we have identified that is that we took a position, let's say Director of Utilities, and said, what is the market rate for that in the area of Pueblo? And let's say it's 100,000. That's the median salary for it. We use that and then establish a range by doing 20% to either side to establish a salary range. So for that 100,000 mid-range, creates a salary range of 80,000 to 120,000. The idea is that if you have a very competent utilities director who's coming on board, who has the experience required and maybe a little bit above, you're probably paying them at the mid-range because they're probably at the average. If you're accepting somebody who might only meet the minimum qualifications and not have everything you want, you might be paying them lower, closer to that 80,000. And if you find one who's much more qualified and you think that's a good investment in Pueblo West and that person is somebody we're bringing on board, you might pay them higher than their mid-range or closer to 120. The district did not have a policy or a program previous to this year to do that in a very consistent way, so it did the compa ratio rubric, which allows us to evaluate objectively based on education, experience, certifications, qualifications, and also we took our old longevity program and included that so that there's a process for people longevity with the district to be able to increase over time and develop that along a scale. And so that allows us the flexibility of hiring folks who have more competencies and more qualified that sometimes end up a little bit closer to mid-range, and understand that people can project exactly what they need to do to increase their pay based on bringing things that are hopefully objective to the district to make them more qualified for that position, and the longevity for it too. Our average compa ratio, which is just the shorthand math, is take what you make divided by that mid-range. So if you make the mid-range, it's a 1.00. If you make the exact min, it's a 0.80, and if you make the max, it's a 1.2. That 20% either side off of it. That number is supposed to tell you essentially how qualified you are compared to the mid-range of that position that we've done the analysis on. Our old compa ratio before introduction this year was a 0.89, which is pretty close to min. That has, since we implemented this program, gone to a 0.96 and seems to be holding steady, which is pretty reflective of the competencies and the longevity we have with a lot of our districts. So we're still below mid-range on average, and this step was I think Director Pasnick, you had asked a little bit about the old fiscal sustainability study when it talked about whether it was the pay or the different parts of the programs. I think I shared with you that we were 18% from mid-range based on that analysis. The steps we took prior to this brought us to about 10%, 12% higher, but still off that 18%. This compa ratio essentially bridged that last gap. Now we have a pretty consistent mid-range compared to market, and the ability for people to be able to understand how they would make more during that. So we're still below mid-range, but it allows that for that program, and that's in a nutshell what compensation ratio is.
And how do they get raises?
So they have to submit certifications that are approved, or certifications, qualifications that are approved based on the department needs and based on the department positions. For instance, the fire department will have often firefighter level 1, level 2, higher level certifications in wildland firefighter, SCBA training, different things that go there. There's the education and experience line, which is probably the more complex. If a position requires a bachelor's degree, they have to meet those minimum requirements. But if they come with a master's degree that's relevant for that position, they can oftentimes essentially get higher in that line. There's 4 lines for scoring: education, experience, certifications, qualifications, and longevity. So each one's evaluated based on the actual job description that they have, and it's evaluated based on that. Qualifications, yeah. And so the major difference between that, certifications are typically 80-hour plus courses. They usually tie directly to a 3-letter designation on your title or a much more intense program. Qualifications might be more minor, smaller ones that you can get to be able to help enhance your job proficiency, sometimes like Microsoft Office suite positions that usually make 40 hours or more to count for each qualification. So those, and then the longevity piece of it is I think it's every 2 years you get a mark on that, and that goes up 10. So if you think of the 0.80 to 1.20, that's 40 points. Each longevity, 2 years counts per point, each qualification counts per point, certification counts for 2 points, education experience, have to double check, but I think it's 2, 5, 10 within also their education requirements that are tied together. The difficulty with experience sometimes can be evaluating it. I know getting a lot into the weeds here, but sometimes evaluating the experience aspect of it. If you tell me you've done hospitality for something and you're applying for a position that might require customer service, translating that becomes a challenge of making sure that we're objective and consistent when it comes to somebody coming out of the district. So that's the one we still, I think, have the most challenges with, but it also allows us to reflect and evaluate for those new employees who are being hired to consider based on their resume and what they can provide, how to be able to provide an offer that's usually fair and competitive. Did I answer your
Who sets
question?
these
So
targets and who determines pay?
So the program itself was approved by the last board as part of that process, both in the budget and the personnel policy, and that's where that template comes from. The actual evaluation of it, typically based on the job description and evaluated by the department director, HR, and potentially another supervisor if there's one involved.
The concerns that I have with that it seems to me that all of our personnel expenses have, with the funds, have, some of them are 54%, some of them are 34%, some of them, there's a couple that are 79%. It concerns me because those are tied specifically to water, wastewater funds. For example, the admin building, I think 49 plus 19 plus,
32, talking about the cost allocation?
it's like 68% of the fee, the pay for somebody in the admin building is taken out of water, wastewater fund, enterprise fund.
Yeah, so the cost allocation was based on, and it was approved by the previous boards in 2024 and 2025, because 2024 would have been the first year we did it. It was identified that there's always been a cost allocation for positions within the district. It's actually Joe who brought it up as a concern, because to the exact point, it looked like that there was funding that was essentially said for the district manager position, for instance. You could justify half the cost of that or more, and as a board decision to do it, that it could be charged partially towards the water and wastewater enterprise fund, because they may require, that's part of the process for what a district manager is also serving as. Finance director might be a better example. That position is serving the general fund, the water enterprise, and the wastewater enterprise. And then previously, I forget what the actual number was, but previously it had been identified from a previous finance director. And when Joe brought it up during that conversation, we reevaluated it during the budget committee, where we came up with what are the operational expenses. If you compare what's available to charge from the general fund and the operational expenses to the water, to the wastewater, to even the COA, the question came up is how do you fairly identify what part of that position might be spending their time in each of those funds to help. For instance, finance department might spend a lot of its time in the utilities department if they're our largest revenue and our largest expenses when you compare them to anything else within the district. With the fire department, probably the only thing close to even that level of expenses. One of the challenges for the fire department, though, is we can't do that for the fire sales tax, because we can't charge those same funds to the fire sales tax funds because they're not approved to use for it. So that's how the 19 for, I'll start with 32 general fund, 49 water, and 19 wastewater that you see in the budget was developed. It was based on the operational expense comparison.
How do you figure out which to allocate what? Like what percent to put towards?
So that's how we ended up doing it, was what was the operational expenses that could be charged for the general fund. Let's say it was, and these aren't going to be the right numbers, let's say it was $5 million for the general fund and operating expense. No salaries, we're not counting personnel, we're just talking about what is the operational budget, anticipating that's the impact what it might have on something like the finance department. Let's say it's $5 million for the general fund, let's say it's $10 million for the water fund, and let's say it's another $5 million for the wastewater. That would be a total of $20 million, which means that 50% is going to the water and 25 to general fund and wastewater for the positions that applies to, which includes finance, HR, parts of business admin, and parts of admin. I can explain, for instance, all the finance department, with the exception of maybe their part-timer, is broken up that way. But the admin one, there might be, for instance, the chief administrative officer is 100% the general fund, because it was thought to be more on the general fund side. Another example is the business admin. Community relations and IT serve everyone, but the economic development specialist or support specialist might only be a general fund asset. So we identified and went through that with that budget committee at the time and identified each of the positions and cost allocated them that way.
My concern is that we're looking at passing a water, wastewater increase with proposed salary increases of 50% and higher that gets passed on to water, wastewater fund, that those people have, that it's a fee, it's a tax, it's a tax in essence, it's a tax to them, but it's based on fees that people have to pay regardless. So tying those two together kind of worries me about raising water, wastewater fees in order to accommodate higher salaries in other departments. That's my concern.
Yeah, that's a fair concern. I understand that. I would say that the major rate increase isn't salaries. Even if you talk about 2.2% across the board for the district, and including the general fund ones at cost allocation. It is capital. That's the major driver for the revenue.
But it's more than 2%, Christian. We're talking those.
So we talked about projections. and we're- and we're-
Projections, and my
yeah.
question was, that's a projection, but that allows you within your district manager discretion to hire people, correct?
Only authorized positions by the board, and for the salary ranges authorized by the board, which are both part of the budget process. What I'm saying is that even those 2.2 or even the compa ratio involved with it pales in comparison to what is generating or justifying the rate increases, which is long-term capital investment. Not disacknowledging the idea of the.
I will concede that, but my point is tying that to a rate increase that people don't really get, they don't get to vote for that. So it's kind of it's a self-feeding system that keeps growing and growing. That's my concern, is those tied together. I'm certainly, I'm older. I like the incentive-based practices of raises, show up for work on time, do a good job. Your department head evaluates you and you get, a raise or not. I think I heard a discussion about people being concerned that at some point we're going to be saturated to where a new person getting hired on is making the same amount of somebody that's been there for 5 years, and this was part of the reasoning for this type of compensation ratio.
Yes.
I have a hard time understanding that because people still have, in the old days, you still had an opportunity to get raises based on performance and based on how well you did your job. And if you didn't perform and you consistently were denied raises, certainly somebody can get hired on that's making the same wage, but that's directly related to your performance.
Yes.
So,
No, I'm happy for that discussion. So the idea of merit-based is subjective, unfortunately, in some cases. And I think it was probably right when I started, around 2020, there was a look at trying to create performance-based or merit-based increases for salaries. We looked at other local governments that were trying it or had considered it. And I shared some personal experience from performance-based evaluations and how challenging it could be. So the idea that we have qualified supervisors all the way up to the district manager who can evaluate fairly and consistently to avoid a concern that there might be a legal issue or even a personnel issue where there's favoritism, for instance. That's where we've had challenges in trying to figure out how can we do a merit-based or performance-based increase that ensures it counts for more objective-based criteria. When we started looking at that, we started evaluating what became the compa ratio rubric, is trying to find objective ways to ensure people could actually bring something to the table and show that what this compa ratio doesn't do, very much acknowledging it. It doesn't evaluate, let's say, Bill and Rodney. You both have high education, you both come to a position, let's say it's a plant operator position, you're a stellar performer, you're coming to work every day, you're going above and beyond, and you're just meeting the bare minimum requirements. There is a challenge there to ensure that you would be paid more based on that performance than him in this current system. But what it also avoids is that I give you all the assignments and I really like you and you like the same things that I do, and there's a supervisor position that is evaluating these, and I'm starting to give you those increases based on the things I'm providing you to be able to get that performance increase. That's where we've had concerns, and we've heard concerns from other governments. And my personal experience, and for those who've been evaluated by military for rater and senior rater, one of the biggest things that can be a big challenge that people hate is that it's the boss's favorite or the boss's favorite that ends up getting those opportunities for growth, not the actual person who's performing. The person who's coming in every day and working might be shadowed or not looked at compared to the person who's just showing up and getting the coffee for the boss's boss. Those experiences, and the military doesn't even do merit-based pay, they just do merit-based performance or promotion. Even as supposedly and hopefully coached, mentored, and trained or educated to be able to do that fairly, we've had challenges with that, or I had challenges with that. We've heard it across the Army when we were going through that process. So this objective one was to do it in such a way that would avoid those type of concerns. And I can share just from, and this is anecdotal, in the past 2 years in the interim district manager position, I probably had a pay issue once a month. that had to talk to somebody about before this new system, because somebody had come forward and recognized there was more pay that they could make elsewhere. And so they were trying to tell the district, hey, if I go and be a plant operator for the Board of Waterworks, I could go make 10%, 15% more. And it would start a conversation. And because there was no practice in place, what would often happen is either we would try to counter it in the budget, or we would say, hey, tough luck, we don't have a way to do that right now. And it was a little bit inconsistent. We did shore up some of the things in the interim, and then it was the introduction of this actual policy where I think I've had one this entire year. And all it was a trainee position, because our trainees aren't authorized positions, and it's a very easy identification of they didn't have the compa ratio rubric benefit. So we had a conversation about how to evaluate that further. So it did reduce those subjective case-by-case basis where people were trying to be able to not necessarily game the system, but identify that they could have had a better paying job elsewhere, or they didn't understand an objective way to progress than the current system. It has resolved a lot of those. But I do recognize it.
Can't you do like a market study internally to find out, oh, these guys, we're paying these people low, so we need to give them all a raise?
So we've done
Like to avoid the employee coming up and saying, I could go over here and.
So that's what we ended up having to do on those case-by-case basis. Case-by-case bases, I guess bases is the right word, because we would have those situations come up, and we could respond to that. But I'll share the biggest one was probably the fire department, and we weren't having so much conversation there, just more holistically. We had learned that a lot of fire departments, City of Pueblo, Colorado Springs, places that can attract our firefighters because their positions aren't one that are dedicated to coming in every day. They may be a 48, 72-hour shift or 96-hour shift, where they would be able to travel a little bit longer because they can stay that night. So our area of competition is much wider than a plant operator or an admin assistant. And if Colorado Springs and City of Pueblo are advancing their costs and their programs are paying almost 20 and 25%, even doing that study wouldn't solve that problem, because the amount we would have to be able to adjust for each one of those and the amount of firefighters wasn't something we were able to do until this program existed. The feedback we've gotten both from the union and the individual firefighters who've talked is that at the very least they have felt that this system allows them to progress. They may still be making 5 to 10% less than their competitors or our competitors, but they're much closer to it, and they're able to see their progress and objectively be able to do it. So it's helped create a situation where we're not losing those firefighters anymore, which in the past years we had been.
Yeah, because the problem I see with, like, just looking at certifications, education, and longevity, those aren't, I mean, that's like those are one-time things, the certs and education. And then longevity is just like, you're just existing in place.
Yep.
So I guess my concern of doing it that way, or the current way, is, just that they could basically come in with certs, education, as an example, and get hired at a higher rate before you even see how they perform.
Yeah, the idea.
So doing the performance-based.
It's a fair criticism for it, because the idea of it is that they're getting paid essentially, ideally, what they're objectively worth based on the things that they might be coming in with, higher education or certifications with it, and they may not be a good performer. To the question that I think Jim asked, do we have a probationary period? Yes, typically 90 days, sometimes longer, especially for firefighters, where we'll be able to evaluate them and say, are they meeting our expectations? So the objective stuff translates to the pay, but there's still the expectation of the performance and the evaluation therein. What longevity, so education, experience, certification, qualifications, longevity, what that also allows us to do is education is probably the biggest barrier for entry. Not everybody has a higher level of education. So usually people have invested some time into that if they've gotten it and they're already coming in with it. But what the longevity does and the education experience is kind of tapers it. It makes it hard to max. You can't just immediately go to max. You might be able to get in certifications, qualifications, a little bit of education experience, and if you've been here, some longevity, but you're probably tapering around the mid-range, a little bit higher, and you can't really get to the 1.2 unless you're the idea of education is that base gets you started, higher education gets you advanced a little bit farther, about mid of that section. You need 2 levels higher to get all the way to max. So it makes it very hard to just immediately max the scale.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know who we're competing against other than government entities, but looking at these salaries, at the mid-range, there's not anybody that's making less than $58,000 a year. I know teachers that don't make that.
Social workers.
And what I've always advocated is that the Metro District is a you know, a finite funding source. So we may not be able to compete with everybody out there, with the salaries that people would want. But man, when you go to the max on most of these salaries, that most all of them are approaching $100,000.
Yes, which are reflective of incredibly qualified people, probably overqualified for those positions to be able to get there.
My concern is I don't think the populace out there is anywhere approaching anywhere near this type of pay. And we're accountable to the taxpayer. I'm not advocating that, you know, we don't appreciate what goes on and we want to pay people what we can, but we also have to realize we work within a limited amount of money. That's why it concerns me about financing salaries out of the wastewater water fund, because that's a fee that can get passed on and raised every year, which minimizes the impact to, you know, how we really assess paying employees. I don't know, I think looking at these, we do very well for the district employees and we pay for their certifications generally too, don't we?
There are options for that by department. A lot of them might take it upon themselves. They might ask, there is a tuition assistance reimbursement, so separate from that, just certifications. Each department has identified training and education funds, but it's only based on what's been approved within the budget. But yeah, the mid-ranges at one point within the past 3 years, all of them have probably been evaluated at one point or another to see, is it competitive with the market? So for instance, and I don't mean to be dismissive of it, but the idea of like a teacher, for instance, probably does make less, but we obviously aren't comparing ourselves to a teacher if we don't have a teacher position for it. What we would be looking for is our collection distribution operator, our plant operators, would be comparing them to the Board of Waterworks, for instance.
Right, yeah, no, we need to keep them, I don't.
Yes, that's how they were established.
But there's a lot of other positions here that are not that. Anyway, it just concerns me that, you know, and salaries are always going up, benefits always go up. It's a cycle that you can't curtail, and it cuts into what we can put towards capital projects.
Where's most employees fall?
Fire, fire, water.
In the mid.
Oh.
Mid.
Our
max.
average comp ratio is 0.96, so slightly
Oh,
below.
okay, that's
mid,
it. Okay,
Or
gotcha.
mid, yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's a jump from where we were before the 0.89.
0.89. All right.
It would be interesting to me to understand and see what your merit promotion system is versus your work performance counseling for each of the employees. Are you doing it quarterly, monthly? The government loves databases where they can track counseling, right, or work performance evaluations and stuff. The problem is, they make it so easy for everybody just to click satisfactory, add a bullet point, and move on, so that way you make all the people happy all the time,
Yeah.
and that doesn't truly happen.
Yes.
Because we're carrying the lops, the ones that ain't doing their job. I mean, not everybody comes to work 100% every day, I understand that, but when you see it, physically see somebody else isn't pulling their weight, I can't justify that. And not knowing your merit promotion system and your performance evaluation makes it hard for me to move on with these salaries when I look at 2023 and 2024, and we got a $200,000 jump. And does that include the 2.2% cost of living increase?
The 2025 to 2026, yes. I forget what the COLAs might have been in previous years. One was, I think, slightly around 2, and I think in the past there have been as high as maybe 8 in 2021 or 2, I forget.
And
Or at
I
least an
gotta
additional.
agree with Bill. I mean, it looks like we're subsidizing salaries and, with rate increases.
So to your point about the performance evaluations, great question, because what we have gotten away from is trying to do that until we have a more sophisticated system. This is not a merit-based promotion merit-based increases for salary. It's an objective-based one that they're bringing something forward to show for it. We did have a pretty sophisticated program, at least the structure of it for evaluations. It's very time intensive, and so one of the things we absolutely noticed is people would check the block. They say satisfactory for people because they might have 8 direct reports and they're trying to do it all at once, they're trying to do it throughout the year. That's not what's translating to pay increases though, and it hasn't been, even before my time for this. So that one is not what's happening, and the only thing I would clarify is that there's not, when it comes to the cost allocation for the positions that are supporting both general fund and the utilities, it's not the shell game of trying to do that. It's trying to identify that these positions serve both. If you had the water enterprise standalone with no district, they would need those full-time positions, or at least a portion of those full-time positions, to be able to sustain themselves. But since the general fund has those positions in them, the cost allocation breaks it apart. So those are, in most cases, and happy to go down and discuss each of them and discuss where the justification for why the cost allocation came from. Most of them are identified as they are supporting them, and they would exist even if the water enterprise stood alone.
And I'm trying to remember, I think, as far as the employee base, we were just looking at hiring one more person.
There's 4 new positions. 2 of them impact the general fund. There is a budget analyst and now the project manager. There is a plant operator, so that one specifically the water, wastewater enterprise. And then there's a fire employee that is actually a trade-in. They're eliminating the deputy chief position and adding an EMS,
Right, quite a few of those we were just trading. And I think there was one extra that we were hiring, a clerk or
there's those 4.
so there's
4 new positions.
for 2026.
One of them is a trade, it's the fire department. One of them is only impacting water, wastewater, and the other 2 are impacting the general fund. And to that point, they would be cost allocated out because they are serving the entire district, the budget analyst and the project
So
manager.
we got 3.
Essentially 3 effective.
So 68% of their salary is gonna come out of water and wastewater.
For those 2.
That's my problem.
Yeah, because they're serving both. The project manager is probably going to do utilities projects. And if we didn't have those project managers, then the utilities department would have to have full-time project managers, which it had in the past.
So in a sense, when we approve the budget, we're approving everything within the content of our binders.
Yes, absolutely. Which has that cost allocation in it.
So although the binders are subdivided by sections, can we put a pause on a section and approve the remainder?
You have to approve the budget in its
budget
entirety
or
to appropriate funds by December 15th.
We can have a meeting, right? We can have a special meeting?
Ken, I would caution that this is a pretty intensive discussion at this point if we're talking about changing that, and we are limited on the time left. That's part of why that budget committee exists, to have that conversation through it.
Well, if it's intensive, well, maybe we should have addressed this in August.
That's why we had the budget committee.
Yeah, but it always seems like it,
Yeah,
We're
it's still
rushed.
gonna be addressed. Looking at the Community Neighborhood Development Fund, what is that? Is that
COA,
COA?
correct.
99% increase in their department. It went from 405 to 808.
One of the things that, I don't think I mentioned it, that you might not be seeing, is that you're comparing in the 2026 budget only 3 columns. 2024 audited, 2025 estimated, and 2026 budget. In some cases, those estimated are and they always are, they're based on what actuals we had at the time we were doing the budget. Let's say we were in the middle of June or the end of June. We have 6 months of data. And so what we're doing in that budget is timesing it by 2, if it makes sense to, if it's an all year round expense. That might reflect positions that are vacant or other positions that might not have been adjusted for things to happen. A good example is the HR department. we had one position that started being filled at the beginning of this year, and now has been absent for almost 6 months as we're trying to develop that adjustment when the audit, when it came to those additional employees that are gonna be classified, readjusting that and taking the time to do it. That position might have been vacant for 6 months, so the estimated you might see in that column might not reflect the actual expected budgeted costs associated with it. If you compare the 2025 budget, which does requires you to look at the other budget, compared to 2026, you'll see that they're closer in those cases for it. I could take a look more closely at the COA to identify where that one was. I didn't actually look at that one specifically because we were focused on the general fund. And part of the conversation, when we noticed that, that's why we came with the 5%.
It just seems to be it's an overall trend that things have really gone up. Another question, so Sean Winters is the department head of several things. How much of his salary is generated from water, wastewater?
We have the flat 32, 49, 19 for any position identified based on the operational costs. When we talked about it with the budget committee at that time, it seemed the easiest to be able to do that and still remain consistent rather than evaluate different metrics for each department. For instance, the finance department, if it was based on positions, or the HR department, if it was based on positions. If we did it, let's say there's 50 water, wastewater employees, 50 fire, 50 other general fund. Instead of taking that and uniquely applying it to HR, we did that operational cost flat across those identified positions.
For this, going back to the salaries, did we, this is the first year we're doing the compa metric?
First year was this year.
First year was this year.
Yeah. The two reasons you're seeing the higher for the projected salaries for 2026, one was as we were doing the comp ratio to the 1.05, we're gonna adjust that down to a 1.0 is our intent, and that'll bring a lot of those costs down. It was just a budgeted cost, expecting there to be potentially more buffer volatility as we were experiencing it, but I think we've actually evened out towards it, and I think we just overestimated the budget for 2026 salaries. I forget the second aspect, I apologize.
So we could stay with the 3% cost of living and put a pause on the rest of this out of the budget.
You mean maintain
And
the same
reeval-
salaries
and
that we
re-
have and just go
and
with
reevaluate
3%?
it, the system.
There's nothing, the only actual that actual change that's happening with the salaries this year is the 2.2. The reflection of the over budgeting when it comes to the 1.05 was just a projection. It's not the actual reflection of actual costs. The rest of the programs is still in place, but it's not anticipating to actually go that.
Okay, so putting a pause on that portion of it wouldn't impact the budget at all.
I don't understand what putting a pause on it means.
Not implementing the
The salary increases, but
compensation ratio as proposed, and
It's,
maybe reevaluating different ideas, because I just think it's
So if we-
exorbitant at that point. And if you're not planning on doing it, then why is it in the budget?
because budgets are intended as they're a guessing game. They're a guessing game of how much we might spend. I think, as we acknowledged earlier, recognize that this part of it was overestimated for it. So there's gonna be a reduction to that. That doesn't change how much or whether it's implemented or not. And it is currently implemented now.
I think the point is it's hard to pass something with that number solidly written in there, knowing that us five passed it.
So you're not passing
That
it tonight.
Right.
We're just
No,
having a
but-
discussion.
But if we don't do something about it, we're gonna pass it next month.
The intent would be to pass it with a reduction for it, which would probably be a 5% overall reduction, I think, on average for the entire personnel salaries. When you're talking about the 50% comparative to an estimate, that's not the same thing as the budget. We may have come in significantly under estimate because we didn't have a position filled, or the positions we expected to be filled, we expected to be higher paid, for instance, and they weren't. For example, I think in 2025, we estimated admin to be higher at one point in the budget because there was the idea that we didn't know what the district manager was going to be paid before they were hired, until the district manager was actually hired, and I'm at like a 0.89, for example. So there's those situations. The budget isn't the actual you're going to pay that number, it's a prediction of what we may anticipate to pay. And oftentimes we overestimate, at least slightly, because to underestimate means it requires a budget amendment rather than just understanding what you're working with as far as the budgeted and appropriated funds.
But we don't have to have a budget amendment to change it now, before we pass the budget.
We haven't passed the budget, so there'd be no amendment.
That's what I'm saying.
That's-
So
yeah.
it can be modified to.
So, I just want to read these, because I just did this real quick. From 2024 from 2024 audited, which is hard numbers. right?
Yes, and
Those
they're
are solid.
before they don't count for any new positions, COLAs, or the CR rubric being implemented.
Okay. Say that again? New positions?
So for instance, I can't think of a good example for it right now. HR may have gotten a position in 2025. So you might see a increase from 2024 into 2025 if there was a new position.
Okay, I think this still stands. So from 2024 audited to the proposed 2026, I calculated 9 departments, and these are the increases. 33% for one department, this is in 2 years. 40%, 48%, 41%, 51%, 48%, 46%, 42%, and 10%. And I don't think I didn't write down the last one because that was wastewater, and I think that was the biggest one. But anyway, that's huge to me. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember 2024 to 2025. I can't remember what the increase was, if it was a 3% COLA or not. The average when it
Whether
goes
it's per
0.89
employee
to
or
0.96, I think that's about a 10 to 12% increase from the average of what you would see. So let's say 3%, 12%. These aren't additive technically, and then any additional positions that might have been added, which would be the most significant increase you would see. Depending on what those departments are. Parks, I believe, added a position during it. HR has added a position. Finance adding one in 2026. Project development's added about 2 to 3 positions. Maintenance ops added about 2 to 3 positions. I can't account for them unless we look at them specifically.
I
But-
couldn't tell you how many times, as a federal officer, not receiving a pay increase, always got a cost of living increase. But what's crazy is when you give your federal officers a 1.3% pay increase, and everybody gets the same cost of living increase, but in the middle of the night at 11:55 p.m. in January, after 3 continuing resolutions, they finally pass a budget, and Congress and the Senate gives themselves a 20% pay raise. So that's a thorn in my side.
Yeah, I get-
And this, I think this requires further review. I'd be more entitled to doing a 3% cost of living increase, because quite frankly, I live in this community, and the cost of living in the last 3 years hasn't changed too much, but I think it could be improved versus huge salary increases.
So I'll share this real quick, just quick numbers, looking at the overall. If you take 2026 budget to 2025 budget, the overall increase, I believe, was about, in just personnel costs, about 21%, and that accounts for any new positions, that accounts for the 2.2%, that accounts for the overall 1.05 comp ratio, which is that high-end one that we believe will come down, as we look at those things. But if you look at 2025 estimate to 2025 budget, it actually came under about 5%, just on the actuals that we're looking at right now. Oftentimes, the budget is higher than what the estimate will turn out to be for those things, and even the budget estimate has a similar aspect towards it.
Who
How come?
determines,
Go ahead.
who determines the necessity of a new position or a new employee position? Who determines that?
The board, so, well, let me clarify. The staff evaluate, just like we did with those 4 positions, which are not authorized at this time. We identify that those are recommendations or things we want to come forward, and then we come to the board and say, hey, these are ones that we would like to approve as authorized positions in the next budget. There are no new positions created throughout the year. Only way to authorize a new position, which means a true FTE increase, is through the board.
With those 4 positions?
Yep.
And then they explain, we get an explanation why these positions are necessary or needed, or?
Yep, that's what we did at that, I think at the October meeting. We identified those 4 positions, and the only change from that October meeting was that stormwater one, identifying that as a project manager, it might have more utility for the district as a total.
How come you don't know what the salaries are actually going to be in 2026?
How do we do?
How do you, but you said that you don't know.
I don't think I said that.
Well, you said
they're
that,
proposed.
you said these are proposed and they could
The
change or?
the idea of estimating a budget of salaries to allow for the flexibility of hiring new employees if one were to switch out, or for them to get higher levels within their compensation ratio rubric throughout the time. That's what we were trying to project, to have
So
the
you're
flexibility to do
saying
it.
if somebody, so this is for the 4 new hires, plus it's for, let's say, whatever. Somebody quits in Department X,
Mhm.
and maybe they were less qualified based on your hiring rubric thing,
Yep,
and they come, and the new person comes in, and they should be paid higher based on the
yeah.
thing, and
The
then
idea
that
is to
would be
count-
increased.
That is the idea, to account for those situations. So
It still seems like a lot of volatility in employment.
Yeah, it is the second year we've done the comp ratio rubric, and we weren't sure how big of an impact we anticipated. We were actually pretty close to what we estimated. Like I said, the estimate was within 5% of what we thought and what we budgeted, or sorry, what we budgeted and thought versus what actually happened, based on the numbers we're looking at now. But the question, as we were looking at it 2-3 months ago, was do we have enough data to be able to make that determination? And do we anticipate there's going to be a continued progression towards that? And really, it has tapered off as we've seen our current employees with a lower turnover rate as they advance through that comp ratio. What we don't know is the expectation of new employees. So we still wanted that buffer. We chose that 1.05, and we think it's high. And so we're reducing it to 1 mid-range, essentially, across the board for those
I
positions.
understand you're gonna do that before December.
Correct. That'll be then the new.
I have other questions.
You ask away.
If we're done with salary.
What's that?
If we're done with salary, I have other
Okay, go.
questions. Did we check the, did we get a comparison on the fleet lease?
We have an initial estimate for, we're probably gonna have to take a longer conversation about that. What we don't know are the costs associated with completely abandoning one program and going to another, but we do have early figures as far as what that could look like if we.
So you found a competitor?
I think, we believe there are competitors.
Okay. When do you think you guys would get numbers from those and crunch the numbers and
I
whatnot?
think that, I would encourage us to have that conversation next year into it, probably at 2027, because if we do change anything, it's changing a whole fleet program
Yeah.
in-house. So yeah, I think we could probably do it early next year.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's important. The other thing, the other thing I was thinking about today, I was like, I find it hard, what year are those trucks that we have? That I see driving around everywhere?
Most of them, I think the oldest ones are 2020, 2021. We have them on, I think,
They're all
4 to
leases,
6
so
year.
they're all newer.
Yeah, 4 to 5 year.
And I know I brought this up in the budget meeting, but, can we do like a feasibility study on bringing that stuff, just doing away with the leases and bringing all, and just buying used
lease
vehicles
programs.
and maintaining them and whatnot?
Yeah, I think absolutely we can discuss it, whether it's a study or whether it's analysis. What the biggest challenge we're gonna run into is having then the staff to be able to maintain and do that whole process for which we are relying on the enterprise fleet. Without the facility, without the staff, I think that's gonna be part of that feasibility analysis, just to share a
Yeah.
concern we've had about.
That's,
had that
that's
once
fine. I
before,
think it
though.
would,
What's that?
We had that once before.
Yeah, I think we had 2 to 3 fleet, and as we grew and got bigger, there were benefits, obviously, advantages with having both the facility and the staff to be able to do it, but there were still also similar challenges that we have still
because I
today.
kind of have a hard time with, I mean, those vehicles I would argue, or I would estimate are nicer than the majority of vehicles that people in Pueblo West drive.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
The benefit of, it's two-part benefit of it. The idea of getting a newer vehicle and being able to have it on a program for which you're rotating it out, ideally, and obviously market conditions apply, is that you take a vehicle that usually has higher safety, less maintenance, it has an upfront capital cost to invest in,
Yeah.
purchase it, but you're doing a lot less to having to maintain it or costs associated with personnel associated with maintaining it. Then you're selling it typically in the 4 to 5, which we do get reimbursed based on that sale for it. So the idea of the net
You
difference
get
of it,
reimbursed?
the cost of the lease essentially once it gets sold.
Oh,
If we bought it for 40,000 and it sells for 20,000, there's a difference. It's not quite the 20,000, but there's a difference for which
Yeah.
we get back based on what it was, because it's capitalized for that $20,000 difference.
And
for
you're
when it's
cycling these out, how many years apart?
4 to 5 years. The,
How many people you think in our community are driving cars older than 5 years old?
probably plenty, but the idea of selling a vehicle that's only 5 years is it gets a lot better than a vehicle that's 10, 20 years. There is that, and there's a whole presentation on it. There's a essentially graph that shows the longevity of the vehicle
My wife's
and the
Subaru,
resale value.
2015, engine went out, 120,000 miles. I drove up to Denver, $3,700, got the engine installed, $3,700. I don't have a car payment. We're just maintaining. And that's a lot of people out here in our community has to do the same thing. I don't think our employees have to drive newer vehicles.
Yeah, it's not a question of
My
trying to give
trucks-
them the
my-
best and the
my-
brightest.
My truck's
It's a question of
8
if
years
there's a
old.
cost analysis that makes it productive, so that way it's less cost to the taxpayer. That's the idea.
Right.
How many cars do we
The,
have? How
the
many?
appearances.
I think it's about
68?
majority, about 20 to 30 is in the utilities department.
How many employees do we have?
165?
So, almost one for every two people?
Two or
Almost.
three. The biggest one
Two
is
to
utilities department has the probably largest one where they have service vehicles that oftentimes they can't share rides as they're going out to calls and times. We do we
We
have
own
gone,
those though, don't we? Or we don't lease all those, do we?
we lease predominant. That's the 78 total or 68 or whatever it might be. I think we have maybe 5 to 10 still client-owned vehicles that have been rotated out, probably somewhere between 10 years of age or close to that.
Doesn't the finance department have a car dedicated to them?
For admin, we do a lot of vehicle sharing, so I think there's only one or two that are actually at the 63 Spalding that's shared by COA, admin,
Okay.
business admin,
COA.
HR.
Okay.
There's one specifically for a safety and risk manager. I think there's at least one truck for the COA, and there might still be one for IT, I'm not sure. Is there? And then there's that pool vehicle. There's only 4 vehicles there parked at 63. 3 of them had dedicated use to more operational activities, one's the admin one.
Okay.
And many of us chose not to try and negotiate for a vehicle ourselves to try and reduce that number.
More questions?
Yeah, let me look here. I missed the board of directors, budget committee meeting, and then when I looked at it, it seemed to triple, from last year, and there was ones in there that I didn't think made sense. Let me,
Go for it.
uniform expense was in there. There's one of them. Karen, which number is board of directors?
That's 01901. You'd probably find it on page 13, TAC 3.
13.
Yeah, we added $500 in there, and it probably was for shirts or anything that would be district-related logos that usually, staff might be able to do it. I think we might have added that there for the board as an option.
I did add that, just for clarification. One shirt, one hat per board member. So looking at it as $500, that means it's $100 per person.
Gotcha, okay.
So that's how I divvied that up, because
The-
most
'Cause I-
shirts are about the $45 to $50 range.
Okay, because it was 0 last year and
Yep.
43 the year
So are these
before.
shirts that we're getting?
You can order
In
it.
the new
We
year,
have a
we
way.
can order one for you.
I don't need one.
Fair. Then you don't have to pay for it. Or-
I pay for my own business cards, 2,000 of them,
The-
double-sided.
Yeah, the full
No cost to the district.
full idea of a budget is predicting what could happen. It's not necessarily what has to happen. What I would share about what probably tripled, and I don't know if you have this, Director Pesnick,
Other rentals is,
check that. Outside services is probably the big one because of election expenses. We didn't know
Okay, that was
there's
the
a
other one,
base
yeah.
fee for an election and there's for each ballot issue you might put, there's an additional cost. So that's probably the biggest one. You said it was,
other rentals it's called.
okay.
Last year was 1,650, this year's 15,600.
Okay, that one I might have to look into.
I don't know what we're renting.
What page are you looking at?
Oh,
13.3?
what I was saying.
What color's the
Sorry.
tab?
13.3, tab 13.
What is
Sorry. 13.
tax.
Tab 13?
Yeah, page 13-3.
Okay. Thank you.
At 63 Spalding, rent was in there.
Okay, we'll double check. The only things I could think of renting or leasing is this space and the storage for any district records that we might have in storage, but we'll check.
So those, okay. Yeah, double check that, because it's it was 0 in 2024 and only 1650.
Yeah, some of those might
Last
also have
year.
been allocated to a different code, but we'll check.
What about the auto allowance? It went to 0, or are they
Uh,
doing that some?
We kind of lumped into the salaries board, so.
What's that?
To the salary.
Oh, okay.
We lumped it in, so just so you know, you get paid, I believe it's $50 per meeting, and it's $35 per month? We'll double check.
Does that include
30, thank you.
the work sessions?
Not this time. Historically, we only did it for the actual board meetings. For these ones where we're doing the trial, it should be. If it's not, we'll double check, but these are now both board meetings. Previously, having the 2 meetings a month plus the 2 work sessions, it was just the meetings that we're paying.
But that's still, what, I think we're allocated what,
2,400
$2,400
annuum
per person?
per person. Okay, that's where we,
So you changed it from some other one, I guess?
yeah, we'll have to check to see where it came from.
So if we go with the one board session, one board meeting each month, that's a cost savings to the district, right?
If you did 1 board meeting a month?
One work session, one board meeting a month, that would be a cost savings.
Not if we do it the way that I think we would, but it's worth conversation. When we had previously, just the board meeting schedule, it's just 2 meetings a month, the second and fourth Monday. When we introduced the work sessions, we didn't pay those because the idea was they weren't regularly scheduled meetings. You're not being punished if you miss them. They are supposed to help facilitate, but they weren't accounted for. In this trial period, we're doing 2 meetings a month, just the Friday and the Monday. One is now the work session discussion, but it's a regular meeting that's posted. It has a packet and everything, and we have a Monday meeting. So in theory, we should be paying both of those. So it should still be 2 meetings essentially per month that you pay for. But in theory, yes, less meetings based on this, there is cost savings associated.
You probably answered this question, I'm sorry if I missed it.
It's okay.
Outside services?
That's election expenses predominantly, so.
Well, there's election expenses above it.
Oh, you're right, hang on.
And Director Pasternak, just to clarify with the rentals too, keep in mind that I'm doing I guess you would call it the records retention program that you all have heard about that I discussed a few months
Yeah.
back. A lot of that space then can go away and we won't have it in 2027 because at that point, all those records should be.
Digital?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Good catch, I apologize, it's not election expenses, it's predominantly projected for 6A. Any outside expenses associated with that, we have included in that line item. So if we go for a consultant, if we do an education campaign, there are expenses that were projected for there, that are included in that, to be able to be utilized. Whether you choose
And
to.
that wouldn't be attributed to the fire sales tax?
No, we wouldn't use the fire sales tax to promote
Okay.
fire sales tax, essentially.
I guess my last question was, and I just caught it when we were talking about water and whatnot. In the parks, why did the parks water bill, why is that expected to be 300,000 when this year it's around 80?
Yeah, so I'll double check on that one, but to the point that was brought up before, not having the pool and potentially being an over projection, because it wasn't, believe, and I'll double check if it was 2024 or 2025. Do you have that line real quick? It's 409. It's okay, I'm in the right section. Just trying to control F. So, 2024 audited, water was 22,000, estimated 2025, 79,000, proposed 2026, 300,000. I think 300,000 was actually what was budgeted for 2025 as well. I can double check that in a second. We may have carried that same budget as we're evaluating it, and it could be something we adjust as we're getting this data. It could come down. The only reason I could think of it as audited and estimated is I don't remember if we actually charged the parks in 2024. My guess is not. But I do know in 2025 we made that adjustment, so that's probably a better reflection of the actual costs of both maintaining the building, which they were probably paying for the water previously, now adding their park use water, but it may not have accounted for all the use that we would have normally seen this year.
That's what remote and is water will not be charged to parks.
Okay. So 2025 is when we started doing that. It may not have accounted for all the use of water in that year. That might have been the first year we're doing it, and we're carrying that 300,000 that believe.
It was 300,000.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I don't want to throw you. But I think as we were asking the water department what they had as a good guess of it, because it had been previously uncharged. So it might just be carrying that budget item and we can adjust it as we're getting more data.
And it's still not a good estimate because we don't have a year's worth of data.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for instance, 2025, when we look at this estimate, it might have just been January through June, whatever we spent that time, times 2, because at the time we had it. Whereas July, August, September might be higher water months. So if we don't adjust it this time, we're definitely gonna have good data from next year to be able to adjust.
Okay.
Well, why did we have a swimming pool fund budget this year?
Because at that time, we did this in June, wasn't sure what we were doing.
Okay. So Carol, do the employees that are here salaried, they work specifically for the pool and, or they also lumped in with the Parks and Rec? I mean, do you have Parks and Rec people that are actually filling these positions, or how, what's the
The pool
separation?
budget is all just pool people,
Just pool people?
lifeguards.
Okay, just lifeguards? Okay. I had a question.
That's all good. I will share just on that note, for instance, parks, if you look at the, I forget where it is in the budget, they're not cost allocated. There's no share of the water, wastewater enterprise paying for any of those types of salaries. Same with fire. So those are examples of positions that we identified. They don't serve both. They serve their specific role.
Does the water or any of the other Pueblo West entities that pay a water bill pay above the 20,000 gallon usage fee, or do they pay the flat fee for water?
Pay the flat fee.
You know, if you use more than 20,000 gallons, there's a step up. If you use more than 50,000 gallons, you're paying $6. Or is it just a flat fee that they pay, or is it stepped?
You pay according to the tier. There's no flat rate for this.
Okay.
Yeah, the only one I can think of flat rate is the golf course.
Yeah, only those are not.
Yeah, and that's untreated water.
Yeah, and it's the, that's based on the
Just
IGA.
wondering.
Yeah.
And Director Roberts, just to clarify about the uniform expense for the board members, the reason why we do the printing through us is because our logo is actually copywritten. So we don't allow printing of our information as far as business cards, hats, shirts, anything with our logo to be printed without coming through us first. But let's say this year you decide in 2026, hey, I don't want a hat or I don't want a shirt or whatever. It'll help us realize the allocation for next year when we're putting in the budget. Hey, only a couple of them wanted this, so we'll ask again, is that still what you'd like, or how many of you would like it, so then that way I can budget appropriately for that. But what I did is I budgeted for business cards, hats, shirts, for everybody, just to kind of clarify that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
How'd I do?
So, I guess we gotta go back to whether or not we need, if we think we are gonna modify this in any way, do we need to have another meeting to talk more about this, or?
Yeah.
Can you get the, like you said, you were gonna adjust the salaries again? Can you get us that before the December meeting?
I think so. I'll double check with Karen.
I
Maybe.
would prefer that we have a meeting before the.
I think that's wise,
Yeah,
so we can.
With that new
yes,
data? Okay.
yes.
Because you don't wanna get it at the meeting and then say, we wanna make changes.
Yeah, right.
It's too late at that point. I think we should have another meeting to talk about it.
Well, we could probably do is at least plan for the next, what would have been the second meeting, November.
Can we do it before the 20th,
Maybe.
please?
We can try.
I'm gone after that.
Because normally we would have a meeting on the 24th. So that would be normally where we would say, hey, that's a good one to call in. If we could do it before the 20th, we'll see if we can, just
Okay.
get that number. What I would say, as far as this, is again, the budgeted thing is not necessarily the actual cost we expect. We're bringing down that number to try and project for it. So even if we end up in a situation where it's like, we still want to evaluate compensation ratio, we want to evaluate those things and discuss those things, even if this budget is approved, that can still happen, and we can still ensure that it doesn't have that impact on that next year, but we would want to do that sooner to understand exactly what those impacts could be for employees throughout the year, to understand what that could look like. It wouldn't necessarily be one that just approving the budget means that it has to move forward with that, if that makes sense.
It does, but by the same token,
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you just say, we're gonna increase everything by 300 million, but that doesn't mean it's gonna happen? That's all. I'm just saying.
Speaking for statutory
You know?
requirements and meeting deadlines, and knowing that we did have a process, and I
Yeah.
do want to encourage
Yeah, I
that that
appreciate
process
that.
is one to be able to hopefully identify these things early.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're here, and I want us to have that time to go discuss it. We'll try to make it before the 20th.
Yeah,
And if we can't, the worst case scenario is 24th might be our fallback.
yeah.
Is that fair?
And I can join
I'm
in.
gonna look at my calendar real quick.
He asked for before the 20th
Before the
if possible.
20th,
The 24th is normally the second scheduled one. That's probably the easiest one for us to be able to evaluate as far as a second meeting on the month.
Thursday?
Mondays.
Monday. Right, that's a 20.
We'll, yeah, and we'll follow up after this
I
to
can
coordinate
zoom.
schedules.
I can zoom in.
We could do that. It doesn't have to be a public hearing for the next one. We do this one as a courtesy. This one is actually required to be a public hearing. The one where we adopt it, where you consider it, that has to be a public hearing. So that's the one we need.
Just, I'm gonna be gone next week, so I won't, so the 24th is gonna be best for me.
Okay. Whatever works for you guys.
And we can Zoom. We can do some virtual. Okay. Fair enough.
It's a big book.
It's a big book.
A lot of numbers.
All right, for our second public hearing.
Oh, that's right, we still got, we're not going home yet?
No, we haven't gotten past it yet.
Okay, the proposed water and sewer rates.
Well, good evening, President Vickers, members of the board, Jim Blazing, Director of Utilities.
Jeffrey Herrera, Deputy Director of Utilities Administration.
So, we're here for your consideration of a proposal of our water and wastewater rates. We continually try to keep up with the rising cost, chemicals treatment. We're finding out about 30% since 2022. Of course, we've all known about our power costs that we're going to have to pay. And then all the time, as I said before, at least 80% of our budget is related to regulatory compliance. That we have PFAS, we have lead and copper, just as an example. The other thing is our aging infrastructure. Our pipes in the ground that serve our customers are coming up on 57, 58 years. And we need to keep a robust replacement program. So, with all that being said, we're proposing a 15% with water and a 5% with wastewater. We did secure the services of Colorado Rural Water through our memberships. And they were very helpful. We did have that outside third-party look at our budget, and where we're at, and where we need to go. And Jeffrey?
Sure. If you'll remember, a few months ago, Rural Water Josiah came and presented some rates. Jim just noted that the water proposed increase is 15% for readiness and consumption charges on the residential side. That initial time, it was 20%. That's went down to 15 by increasing the tap and connection fees. There weren't proposed connection fee increases at that time, and now there are, and that's why we had to change the proposed budget as well, as Karen noted earlier. So most of our customers, most of the time, if you're a water customer, it's going to be $6.40 a month under this proposal. If you're a sewer customer, most of our customers, most of the time, is going to be $9.52 a month. That would be the bottom line most of the time, most of the customers. You'll see some other stuff. We added a fourth tier to this. We've never had that before. We've only ever had 3 tiers. That fourth tier would kick in at 30,000 gallons of consumption, which is quite a bit. But not everybody's going to pay that 30,000 gallons every month. We might have a dozen customers who hit that in, January and February. That's mostly going to be summer months, most customers. So if the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I got some. What I don't see here are what we see in our budget we got 2023, 2024, 2025, proposed 2026. So I don't see anything here that shows that, well, we just did a rate increase not long after, January or February, if I recall correctly. And then October last year, was it October last year? I don't see those statistics here showing when you guys have requested rate increases and what was the outcome of the rate increase.
So those are all on our website, and if you scroll down to one of the next sheets with the blue background, you'll see 2025 current. I don't know. Oh, back up, sorry. Back up.
That was
Up.
the best timing.
Down one.
Down one.
Up one. That one shows what 2025's is right now.
Yeah, that's what I was on.
Yep. That shows current 2025
No,
versus 2026.
yeah, but that, it doesn't go far enough back.
Oh, yeah, on our
I'm
website
talking
it
about
does.
historically, in my memory,
Yeah.
as a,
Correct me if I'm wrong, quick snapshot of the last rate analysis, and the general increases was about 4.25%.
Correct.
From year to year, and that was based on a 2021 study?
2020, started in 2021, finished in 2022.
Gotcha. So that identified those aspects of it. I don't know if it took into account the overall capital at the time, and that's the big equalizer when it comes to why these ones are recognizing a long-term investment in the capital to ensure that we actually have either the funding to be able to construct or conduct those capital projects, or the ability to enter into a bond to be able to do debt service for those capital projects.
okay.
So we could probably,
So I'm gonna get back to what my line of question was. I'm not seeing a pattern of when you guys have proposed rate increases in 2023 or 2024 compared to 2025.
so
I'm going off of memory that it seems like almost every October, we experience getting a letter imposing rate increases. Okay? So to me, that historic record in my head, because I pay the bills, tells me that winter's coming up, nobody's filling up their swimming pools or watering their lawns or their trees, so we have to subsidize some loss for revenue. So we do that at the taxpayers' expense by increasing their rates. And everybody knows that you gotta have water to survive. You can't live on Mountain Dew alone. Okay? So I would love to see those numbers, those dates for those years.
Absolutely. They're on our website, but we can furnish those to you as well.
yeah, I think we could do a quick analysis year to year. I guess I encourage, I don't know if it will be helpful to understand why this one is showing that. For instance, saying that the increase is coming towards the end of the year is not based on a water need that's happening in those months, based on an annual appropriation recognizing our $12 million enterprise needs $12 million of revenue to meet it. So the quick answer, just for the public and for awareness, is it was about a 4.25% annual increase from about 2022 to 2025 in that study. This one is much more significant. It's accounting for the long-term cost. We can break that out and show that, but I don't think that 4.25 is going to be showing why that 18% is necessary.
I don't care about the 4.25.
That is the annual.
I care about the pattern that we're developing.
The pattern is 4.25% year to year.
No, I'm talking about rate increases consistently.
That is the rate increase.
But he's talking about every year.
Every year.
Yes, for 2022, 2023, 2024, up to 2025 was that pattern.
I just want to see the dates that those were submitted for, okay? From 2023, 2024, 2025, just like on our budget here, you gave us a historic footprint of what we have experienced.
Yeah.
I want the same thing so that the public has an idea of what I'm expressing and what maybe their perception is. You just can't assume that because they have a household and there's 5 people living in the household and 4 of them are working to make ends meet, that a rate increase is going to help them at this stage.
I don't know if any assumption made on that. I think we could provide the actual historic trends. You see the analysis.
When we have a huge surplus, How much we got, Jim, in the revenues?
It's 30 million.
For
isn't
the,
Fund
Projected
balance?
at the end of this year, it'll be about 18 to 20. And we have a 5-year capital outlay that's already at 45 million. So there will be bonding and financing of some kind, yeah. And rates have to be showing to cover that.
and historically, as far as I can recall, every rate increase that was imposed has been approved.
For the past few years, yeah.
So could I ask, what is, if you turn to 21 TAC 2 in your budget book, talks about the fund balance that you're describing. That estimated ending fund balance, do you mind, do you have that that you could see?
Here, what do you want? Where is it?
The ending fund balance for the Water Enterprise Fund?
What's the tab?
It is 21 TAC 2.
Let me go back to that. There you go. Hope I didn't close it.
Here you go.
So if we look at that number, what is, the very bottom before you get to that box, what is 2026 estimated ending fund balance read out? Thank you.
3.5 million.
Yeah, so that's that, when you're talking about that fund balance that currently exists in there, that's gonna get used within capital projects. And then there's gonna be more capital projects to come forward to be able to do that 5-year capital outlay that Jeffrey's talking about. The fortunate thing is that we've been able to defer some of those projects over time to be able to ensure we're not draining that fund balance for it. Not raising the rates, if we actually accomplish this, if we are able to do all those projects, means our water enterprise has $3.5 million to its name, and it might have, if the rates aren't approved, an issue of revenue not meeting expense or being very close. And even if it's barely making ends meet or maybe even $1 million over, that's not going to be enough to invest in the capital projects in that 5-year capital outlay, or even be able to pay for the bonding to be able to do that otherwise. I think we can provide the historical trend analysis when it comes to like those and how they're approved and over time.
Yeah, I'd like to see those.
Absolutely.
The year and month of
yeah.
when those were requested.
These rates are identifying the long-term investment. Even those ones that were approved in the past didn't account for that in the same way, and that's why there's such a significant one in this one.
How many users do we have, Jim? 12,000 meters?
About 13,700
13,700.
approximately, yeah.
And also bear in mind, there are, if you're looking at that same page, there is the adjustments that Karen went over earlier for revenues that weren't captured in the rate adjustments.
So the residential water readiness to serve, that's going to generate $51,375. The other one is 207.
Yeah, 21, I thought.
28,359. So $70,000, $80,000 roughly is what those two are going to generate. I get the cost of electricity, the cost of chemicals. Hopefully, we're going to be able to cover that with the water usage upcharge. I'm also in favor of the resource fee going up. The rest of these I don't have an issue with. I personally would like to see if we do the water rate increase that we give a pass on the readiness to serve fees for a year.
Would you like to see that revenue added somewhere else, like in the 30K tier or in just anywhere else, I guess?
No, I'd actually like to see it as a break for the ratepayers.
Just to clarify, you're asking to keep the readiness
The
to
375
serve.
and the 207 to give a pass for the year. Those do generate, if my math was right, about $80,000.
Is that a month?
Oh, that's
That
a
might be a
month,
month, yeah.
times 12.
Yeah.
Almost $1 million.
Yeah.
1.4.
We'll rethink that. Sorry, I forgot to
Thank
go
you,
by
Joe.
12. Yeah, 960,000.
recap that readiness to serve fee? What does it do again?
What it does?
Yeah.
Ideally, there's essentially two major fees that get charged to everyone. I know I'm stealing thunder, I'm sorry. Readiness to serve and then the usage. Ideally, the readiness to serve is a flat fee that does two things. It should account for ideally the fixed cost to just maintain the system, meaning that the pipes have to still be there, they have to be maintained, the system still has to run regardless of pumping water from point A to point B for you to be able to use. That system has operational costs, and that readiness to serve is to do two things: create a fixed, ideally a fixed projection of what the department can expect as far as a revenue source, and also account for those fixed costs associated with it. Whereas the usage should be, what does it cost to get the water from point A to point B, and reflect that based on the consumption. So those are the two parts of what are typically would make up your water bill.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, I would just add too, when you have both of those, it's a balance. If you only have readiness to serve fee, people use a lot of water. If you only have a consumption fee, everybody cuts back, so that way they don't have to pay a lot. So it's a balance. It's always going to be a balance.
Yeah. We've had conversations about turning it into a complete usage fee, and there have been organizations or agencies that have done something similar or at least close. The challenge is volatility. If you in a year recognize that your water bill for using the same water you used last year is only going to jump and you cut back, that means the revenue the department gets cuts back. If there are fixed costs associated with maintaining it, then the revenue rate has to adjust. So even though you cut back 1 year, it's almost like a rate has to come and adjust for it as well.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yes.
And when it comes to readiness to serve, there's a direct correlation with the rates we're going to pay with either bonds or any other type of loans, whether it's a state revolving fund loan. The higher you have on your readiness to serve, you're going to get better rates every time, because that's a steady source of income. It fluctuates less. So you have lower on that, you potentially pay higher interest rates in the end. Potentially.
When would these rate increases take place?
January 1st.
This is proposed for January 1st.
That's what I thought.
I'll say I like adding the fourth, what do you call it, the fourth tier?
We really like that one too.
I think that's
Yeah.
a good idea. Did that come from Josiah, or?
It's floated around for a little while, and our direction to him was to do that, yes.
And again, that's 30,000 and more a month on that.
What's your estimated revenue for 2026 with the rate increase?
The rate increase alone was about 3 million. I don't know overall. I'm sorry, I could look that up, but I don't have it memorized.
I do like the statement that you have in there that, do salaries impact rate increases? I would really like a report, if it can be generated, as to how much money water, wastewater pays in salaries district-wide, what it costs them.
We can do that.
I would really like to see that.
You share it?
Yeah.
We can share it.
And, there's always, too, the potential that we should be thinking about, too, is how to save money, how to do a job better. I'm just saying that should be an ongoing goal all the time.
Absolutely, continuous improvement. Yep.
Without asking, I don't care how off the wall the questions are, getting the answers is what helps us make the better decisions for the future. So I know it may sound crazy what I'm asking for, but
Oh, you should see some of my data requests to Elissa. Every day I'm saying, can you get this now? Can you do this now? So I'm no stranger to wanting data.
I remember the first month when I was on this board, you can ask Christian, I was like on the phone with him all the time. Now it's gotten way less.
Yeah.
But the question I'd ask is probably an answer that I should have considered in making a decision, so.
Do you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns?
How many rate increases over the last 10 years? I guess maybe we're getting that or something.
I'm going to say
we
at
did it.
least 6 in the past 10.
I think there was one per year in the last 5 years from that study. and
That's
don't
what
know
I
before
remember.
that.
At least.
So we can find that out. Is 10 years a fair retrospect? Is that doable?
That's actually what I wrote down. So.
Okay. We'll find the last 10 years of increases and when they took place and what they were.
This is a rate hearing, right? Anybody else have anything to say? Joe?
Any comments online?
Let everybody else go first.
I'm not reading Facebook comments. No emails.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, he got his pack.
You guys want to take a break? This isn't going to be short.
I'm going to.
You want to take a 5-minute recess? I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute recess. Aye. I want to say that Bill nodded, he concurred.
Okay, maybe not, Joe. Maybe not.
Oh, yeah, he's the guy we're waiting on. Minutes.
Well, set your timer. That's when the fight begins,
I
in
don't
3
think we
minutes.
set a timer on anybody yet since
No.
we've been on this board.
All right, go ahead.
I'll try to make my brief history of the water enterprise shorter than I had planned, but I am going to remind you of a few things. The original document that created the water enterprise was dated sometime in 1993. At that time, the district was long on uncared for roads and water pipes that didn't have any customers. They had to do something to be able to balance operations. So they created the water enterprise. When they found out, possibly the reason they did it was they found out that the governing board of the water enterprise, which ends up being Pueblo West Metro Board, could change the water rates anytime they wanted to, but they had to justify it as being directly related to the water enterprise. Well, not too long after that, maybe a decade or so, we had some abuses in bookkeeping, possibly, with regard to fire station number 3. The district manager was fired, and 2 of the board members were recalled, and 1 of them was reappointed. So there's been some politics involved in whatever. But the new board, after that recall, first thing they did was start raising the water rates. And they raised them every year to where in 3 or 4 years they had doubled. They originally were set something near what Pueblo Water Board's rates were, which that's a whole different system. Easier to operate, it's been in a long time, they had a lot of things that were depreciated and so forth. Anyway, these water rates just kept increasing little by little. And somewhere in the line, one of the original signers of the water enterprise, one of the directors, was a certified public accountant. And he noticed that he wasn't on the board. This was 10 years after he got off the board. He noticed that there was quite a discrepancy on some of these charges that were accumulated to the water enterprise. So he did a study, and he wrote an article in the View, that when we used to have this little newspaper out here, and it's of record, you can see it. And he said $1,380,000 of the revenue of the water enterprise was not being used for the water enterprise. It was shuffled off to the golf course, Parks and Rec, administration, things that you kind of discussed earlier. Later, let's say last year, I don't think he's seen this year's budget. He's still alive. He feels that the misallocated charges, if you will, have been reduced from $1,380,000 down to about $600,000. So that's a step in the right direction, unless you're one of those advocates of the services that the district provides that aren't really water related as defined by the water enterprise. The golf course, well, they use water, so we could kind of sell them water for $1.67 a thousand when we lease water from the Board of Water Works for $2.50 a thousand. Creative accounting can easily handle that. It can be done with generally accepted accounting procedures. And that's what is being done today. Now, the proposed budget, or the proposed water rate, does have, it's an improvement from 2 or 3 years ago. The big thing that bothers me is in our propaganda, I'll call it that, on the webpage, here we're saying, here's what we do for the common folks. It says that growth is going to be paid for by growth. And yet, we've spent about $10 million at Hill Ranch perfecting the water right. All of that has been absorbed by the existing ratepayers. We had a rate hearing about 5 years ago where our staff people said, we can't provide any more taps, we're out of water. So we went into a panic mode to buy a bunch of, or lease a bunch of water. We leased 1,500 acre feet. We continued to perfect the water at Hill Ranch, spent millions of dollars, and that all came out of the budget of the water enterprise. That's the existing ratepayers are being asked to pay for growth, not the new growth. Last year, when the budget was presented, we introduced, well, it was actually 2 years ago, didn't amount to anything. Last year, they actually had a water resource fee separate on the tap fee. So that would, in my opinion, that's transparent. Now we know we have so much planned investment fee, which is attributed to the pipelines and the water treatment plant and rebuilding the filters and yada, yada, yada. The budget carried a recommended $2,690 plant water resource fee, not plant investment fee, water resource fee last year for the 2025's proposed budget. We had hired a consultant that told us the water resource fee should be somewhere around $30,000, $26,000 something. My first look at it, when I saw it, I thought they missed a decimal point or didn't count a month instead of a year or something. I couldn't figure that out. Oh, no. The board decided, the power base on the board at that time said, if we raise the water resource fee to $29,000, that would make the total tap cost something north of $40,000. Nobody would move here. Well, if you compare, we're always, when we talk about salaries and everything else, we always compare about the Denver, Boulder area. You get a tap up in Denver, Boulder area, outside of the city of Denver and Greeley. Now, they've still got direct flow rights, so they can provide water like the city of Pueblo does for much less than we do. The tap fees up there are $40,000, $50,000 total cost to build a home. So those people that expect that they want to build a new home someplace, they're retired, that $40,000 or $50,000 isn't as prohibitive as it sounds. It's market value. But I proposed for that budget last year to amend the water rate schedule on the water resource fee from the $2,690 up to something in the neighborhood of $20,000 or $25,000, where it should be. Didn't pass. The board didn't do it, and they're perfectly entitled to do that. Well, the people on the board did not want to have a high tap fee cost, total cost, because they're spec builders. So all you have to do is look at who's going to pay for it. Well, what it is and what this budget's being proposed now it is a increase. It went from $2,690 last year to something around $5,000 or $6,000. Still 20% of what it should be, but it's a step in the right direction. When 3 years ago, after they had that rate study done by Jason Mund and his group, they recommended three ways to generate the money that the board told them they needed to have to break even. And of course, it seemed funny that break even, all of the funds from beginning balance to end balance each year gained. We ended up having $40 million in the bank, but it was all disguised, if you will, or buried in all these different funds. So that gave them the paperwork that they thought they could slip by everybody, and they did. It got by us, of raising the rates again. So they said, Jason Mund Group, and I'll give you rough numbers, they recommended raising the sewer fees 9% a year. And I said, well, why not just round it out to 10? Oh, no, 9 sounds so much better. It doesn't sound like so much. You compound 9% and look at anybody that's on the sewer, you look at your sewer rates. The RTS on your sewer rates up there $60, $70. There's people that they use maybe 5 or 10,000 gallons in all 6 months of the winter. Their readiness to serve fees and tap fees and all this, they list them on the water bill and other charges. Nobody knows what that was. Bob talked about that earlier. So it was just a political ploy of how much. So they said, we'll raise the readiness to serve fee on both the wastewater and the water 4.7% each year, which compounds and gets to be a sizable sum pretty quick, you know, and it's per month. If you want to run some numbers on it, just for fun, as it currently is proposed, the cost to each ratepayer, each of the, what Jeffrey just gave us a number, what is it, 13,700, something like that, taps. Each tap, each month, will only have to pay 1.17 cents for each new home that's built. Wow, who wouldn't want to do that to pay for growth? Huh? I'll just add it. But if you have 100 new homes, that gets into a little more than pocket change. Now we're talking coffee money. So the attitude seems to be we can use the water enterprise, and this is what the director that originally signed the water enterprise said, as a cash cow. And if anybody doesn't understand what a cash cow is, that's when you use it for other, it generates revenue for other purposes. And he felt, when he did the study several years ago, the cash cow was to the tune of $1,380,000. He said, now it looks like it's down around 600,000. Well, is that something we can live with? That's up to you guys on the board. You know, how do we, that's your job. How do you allocate resources? You want to build a new swimming pool? You want to build a convention center? We got rid of the roads, so now we shouldn't have as much expense in our budget. The sales tax thing should be separate. And Christian mentioned that there's something about it, about we can't put salaries into the sales tax part of the fire department. That has to go separate. And the roads has to be, there's all kinds of things now that are different, so you can't compare one year to another. But Greg, if you want to find out all of the website's got all the past rate sheets. You can go clear back, I know they're back there 5 years. And you know, it doesn't seem like much to go from $12 RTS to 28, you know. Just a little more than 2.5 times in 5 years. That's not much, gosh, you know. People pay more than that for coffee sometimes. So how are you gonna spend our money? It's up to you. You gonna take the flak for it, or are you gonna suddenly start saying, maybe it's time we cut back on this a little bit? Okay.
Thank you. Just to point, on the fire sales tax that you'd mentioned, they do salaries out of the fire sales tax, right?
Yeah, what I was saying before is that because there's almost 20 employees in the fire sales tax fund, we can't use their operating cost in the fire sales tax to charge them for anything that would otherwise be accounted for in the general fund when we do that cost allocation, because they are specifically funded in a special revenue fund.
From the
That's
sales
all.
tax, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Joe. I think we share your frustration and sentiments as far as, you know, things continue to go up and up and up, and would really like to get a handle on it, and I would really like to not think that there's a slush fund in the water wastewater enterprise.
Yeah, there's no Santa Claus either.
That's true. That's a true statement.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, we'll contemplate it. I agree. The water resource fee, that's a tough one. It costs us $60,000 to get an acre foot of water for somebody. Who's gonna pay for it?
And that's a good price.
Yeah, okay, $80,000. So you may not be far off from that at $40,000.
Oh, those are actual.
Mm-hmm.
Call up City of Aurora and ask what they want for a new tap total.
Mm-hmm.
There's some towns out east of Elizabeth and whatnot. Not only do you have to pay $50,000 bonded first, you don't wait like we do to have, what is it, you don't put any money into it, you just get a guaranteed tap until you actually have a foundation in the ground. You don't even have to pay anything for the water.
Mm-hmm.
Up in the Douglas County, there's places you have to bond the entire $50,000 for a tap. And then it goes into a drawing, and you might get 3 taps out of the 40 people that apply.
Hmm.
We have an opportunity here. We have water available at much less than state up around Denver. There's no reason we shouldn't be charging the people that want to come down here. We shouldn't let them wait till they get on and then say, oh, you only have to pay 0.17 cent per new home per month to be on our water system.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's a conversation worth having in depth. Thank you, Joe.
Okay,
Appreciate you.
thanks for.
I have one more thing for the water thing.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Real quick on a question I have. Do we have an itemized breakdown list of all our bills? Like how much is our chemicals costing, and do we have anything that goes back to show how much we paid for chemicals and showing that 20% increase in cost analysis? Because I'm looking for it right now, and I'm not. It's not a very easy website to navigate. If we can get the cost analysis going back, how much that's going to cost, or how much the chemical costs, and showing that 20% increase from 2022 to current. And then also, has there been any talk about how we can cut our costs in electricity as far as maybe buying solar panels and lowering our costs with solar panels and in the future processes? Because I got solar panels for my house, and it drastically lowered my electric bill. And I know fuel costs have gone down. So if we can get a breakdown of that kind of stuff to show that, hey, these are the increases, and these are happening.
You want to see the receipts?
The receipts, yes, itemized list.
I'll double check, but I think, you know, obviously seeing in the budget the costs on a larger scale as far as the electric, the utility, the chemicals, all those, probably mine is an invoice or something that shows like, here's what the expectations are. And then if we've gone out for any
Right,
recent.
if we're purchasing chemicals,
any
we should
proposals
have
for
a
things that
receipt
show that.
showing those chemical
So our
costs.
budget's for next year, so we haven't purchased chemicals for next year. Sometimes those are the projections we're seeing coming into the year following. Well, I'm sharing, we can show you the
Over the time,
invoices.
so since 2022, we've shown a 20% increase in chemical, buying,
Yes,
purchasing
for
chemicals. its
historical
costs
ones
have
we
gone
can.
up. So I
Yes,
mean,
for-
if we got that showing that we have gone up that much, and then a viable, hey, yes, we've got the receipt showing that it has increased by 20-something%.
And that's why I was saying with the invoices of what we have had this year, maybe in the previous years as well, to show cost
It
over
should show
time.
previous years too.
I'm sure they're coming in truckloads. Am I correct, the chemicals?
More or less, yeah. Most of them are huge bulk deliveries from trucks, yeah.
You get delivered once a month?
Oh, in the summertime, more than once a month.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it could be 20 receipts over a year.
That's what I was saying. Oh, there we go. That's what I'm saying, is we can provide the ones that we have purchased. I can't provide you ones, obviously, for next year.
Yeah.
Of course not.
No, I'm saying going back, because they use 2022 as the date.
That's what I'm
Going
saying.
back to-
You
yeah.
can provide the
Right,
past
right,
ones.
right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
get you a
Showing that
On the same
increase.
page.
Yeah, that's what I'm, sorry. It's getting late.
But as we're talking about the budget and we're talking about 2026 rates, I can't show you that, is what I'm saying.
I'm not worried about 2026, I'm worried about what they've shown here.
I'm good.
Everybody good? Okay, let's go on to a resolution adopting personnel policies. From Jessica Pankey, our Human Resources Department Head.
All right, good evening again, Board of Directors. Thank you for your time. You might remember our conversation from Friday talking about some changes to the personnel policy. I think overall, most of them went pretty well, except for the unpaid time off policy. So we did kind of work on that language. And so on your updated packet, there's a cheat sheet with some updated language on there for the unpaid time off policy. It does directly tie back to FMLA. We think it addresses all of the concerns that we discussed on Friday, so if you wanted to take a moment to look at that. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Let's see. What do you think this policy does to accountability?
What do you mean?
Well, my opinion, I think we should not have this policy. I think that the way that I assume the way you're doing it is just if somebody came to you, you would handle it, and there's no written policy. I understand the need, you're wanting to maybe make things consistent, standardized. My problem with that is that the lowest common denominator of the employee will see that as an out to abuse or use it as an entitlement. Whereas if you don't have anything written and there is a circumstance that comes up, you can just handle it. And make sure that you document and such. I think what ultimately, big picture, I think what this does is it shifts the culture in a way that I don't think is positive, in a sense that I think to use a horse analogy, the thoroughbreds of the organization will look at that and say, I got to do extra work because this person's out for 6 months, and the opposite of that person would look at it and use it as an out. Not all the time, but I think that by making it a policy, you're advertising that we have this versus just once they're out of FMLA, they call you up, whatever, they have some extenuating circumstance, you just handle it, but you're not advertising that, hey, we do this. So my opinion, I think we should just remove it.
Yeah, I don't like it
completely.
either.
For that reason, to me, it just, I don't know. I thought about it all weekend. I have tons of notes on it, but that's the general gist of it. Is
This is a can of
I don't
worms you
like
don't
it.
want to open.
Yeah, I think
Somebody could take 3-4 weeks, right? And then all of a sudden, they got 3-4 weeks of absence from work without pay. Okay? I just see them use, I mean, they could take up to the 6 months, but I don't think there's a need for it. I would think that you would be able to handle something like this case-by-case basis.
yeah, I agree. And
And
then
that's the way we did it when I worked for the federal government.
Well, that's what this really says too. I mean, why have it in writing when it's really subjective anyway, if you're trying to protect yourself against favoritism or whatever, it really doesn't, because it still leaves you up to the
business
discretion of
decisions and
the district manager, so you might as well just.
They
not have it
literally
in
had to
writing.
exhaust all their vacation, all their sick, all their FMLA, and then they could be considered for approval for donations.
Yeah, they do have that within the
Okay.
policy, yes.
This is open a can of worms. I don't like it.
I think that there's, I didn't explore these, but just other ideas that I thought of for maybe solutions, at least on the, perhaps a monetary, because there's certainly extreme circumstances that come up. Okay, I'm not going to deny that, life happens to people in, traumatic ways even. So I was thinking maybe we could look at the SDA, Special District Association. Maybe they have some kind of assistance fund that we could, nominate this person in our special district has this or that issue, something like that. And maybe they have an assistance fund. I have no idea. I didn't look into it. If they don't, maybe we could create a local one just amongst this district. And then, yeah, he mentioned the donation of the PTO if, because I think that if somebody else is willing to donate PTO, that means that they, are feeling for that person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas if, guy's just trying to go home and play Call of Duty, probably not going to get many donations.
No, I think I acknowledge what you're saying about as putting this in the policy, advertised that it exists, and now people have an opportunity to be able to apply for it. The idea of having a cap, only intent of having this in the policy is to create an actual limit. So subjectivity has an end time, essentially, 6 months being, and it's 6 months including, in this case, the revised language, including their FMLA time they may have taken, so an additional 12 weeks in this case.
Yeah.
It's just create a cap and create a consistent process towards it. I think to that point, it doesn't necessarily itself create more or less accountability than what already exists within that process. To your point, it might create more people who try and take that option, but it still goes through that same process. This was to create a cap. But I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
We have FMLI too, right? Within
No.
We have, family leave?
Family.
The family leave, we did opt out as a district, but an employee can still file for a family leave on their own.
the FMLA part, but not.
FMLA, yes, we do have.
But FMLI is different. The Colorado FMLI program, we
Correct.
opted
That's
out.
paid leave.
Yes.
Right, the paid leave, we opted out of that?
We opted out of that.
Do we have because we have a better system?
We opted out in the sense of, so if we had opted in, the district would have to pay their portion of that, and then the employees would also pay their portion. This is allowing us to not have to pay that for every single person. They can still sign up on their own, pay their premiums, and it does not say, it doesn't limit how much they get. They can still get the full amount of pay, but it's just, we're not paying to be into it, and the rest of the employees that are not using it are also not paying
Right,
into it.
I have a job that does the same thing because they said that it has to be a better program than what FMLI offers. So we have FMLI, you have FMLA, you have PTO, and FMLA is what, 12 weeks itself?
12 weeks.
You have FMLI that's 12 weeks itself. You have PTO that's of itself. I mean, there's all sorts of options, and I get back to what they've said, case-by-case basis. If you're okay with this employee, like, hey, I can give you a couple extra days or so, you know, on the account of this, and none of that has to be within a 12-week period right away. It can be divided throughout that year, and it resets itself for the next current year. So, I mean, it's not I don't like this either.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the language of this one is only for specific uses that FMLA would allow it to be used. It's not the case-by-case basis outside of that, only those qualifying reasons for what, after we discussed Friday, I think it was Vice President Axel that brought up as an example, capped it at the 12 additional weeks for a full 6 months, and also it's only for the qualifying reasons for FMLA. And all this is introducing the caps within that policy. Right now, to that point, all that freedom of that evaluation still exists.
I still don't like the PTO being paid up front.
We're working on this right now. We bring that up later.
This policy in particular still says requests will be evaluated based on business needs, staffing requirements, and the specific circumstances of the request. So, I mean, that to me still seems like you still have the same liability as.
Hang on.
We can just remove it, right?
Yeah.
We can say no. So somebody wants to make a motion to remove it, we'll vote on it.
I'll make a motion to remove the unpaid time off as designated in red on page 25, 7, 11. And the HR policy, I want to get the verbiage right. Let me go back up to the top. Personnel policy, major changes document.
I second.
You have a motion and second to remove paid time off policy on page 25.7.11, unpaid time off. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, you guys okay with everything else that's on there?
Yeah, the clarification of just for the question that was asked, not to dive back into it, but the 7.11 is the first sentence of the second paragraph, the employee's request qualifies under FMLA. That's what was justifying you needed that to be able to even qualify for that unpaid time off section. That was all I was trying to clarify.
Oh, yeah, I was talking about the last sentence in that paragraph.
Yeah, still evaluating everything, but it doesn't even get to that point until it qualifies for that. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Everything else okay? Make a motion to accept the changes as stated? Somebody?
Wait, what?
So we have to approve the rest of these changes, correct?
Yes, I think just a motion to approve as stated with adjusted changes previously passed, and then that motion, and then second, and then voted.
I make a motion to move the personnel policy major changes in accordance to the removal of the 7.11 unpaid time off as directed or as written.
Second.
I have a motion seconded to approve the personnel major policy changes, except for 25-7 and 11 unpaid time off, as the rest of the document is acceptable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. Next up, must be the fire station.
Did you just call me a fire station?
No. The fire station #1 remodel plans by our fire chief. Here, want a pretzel?
Yeah. Good evening, President Vickers, members of the board. I am here based on seeking action, discussing the Fire Station 1 remodel plans. And As you recall, we started off earlier this year with presenting the board 3 different specific options to get this project done. And during the course of this discussion, we scaled the project back to only 2 options. One of it which was at the board's direction a couple of months ago to bring back concept plans for an addition based upon the possibility of using a pre-engineered metal building concept. And we presented those during the work session last Friday on November the 7th. And tonight I'm seeking the final direction from the board based upon that work session.
And that's based on this staff report that you've got there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think, Rod, you were the only one that wasn't here Friday, so have you had a chance to look at the plans? To some, so yeah, I thought it was a pretty good presentation. I like the fact that it's the pre-manufactured metal building. I think Chief Casser is confident that that fulfills needs for the future.
Yes.
And I think it's a good way to go.
Obviously, discussion and everything for it, but just to remind the board, the action we're asking for tonight is a motion to approve, or a motion to move forward with working with, sounds like RS&H.
Yes.
To develop architectural designs based on the concept that's been provided. What will happen if approved is then we will work with them to be able to develop what that cost estimate will be, and there will be an actual contract approved for that, to turn that concept into the contractual architectural designs.
The cost estimate to draw it.
Yes.
Not projected cost estimate of the project.
They will, their actual fee for, not just
Their
cost estimate,
fee.
their actual fee, yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to move forward with RS&H based on the concept provided for the design only for the Fire Station 1.
A second.
I have a motion seconded to move forward with RS&H. RS&H. Oh, here it is. RS&H design to move forward with the concept for Fire Station 1, new building. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Good job.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. I'm getting old.
Next up, we have resolution and award agreement for Civic Center Trail by Carol Cosby.
Good evening, President Vickers, members of the board. Carol Cosby, Director of Parks and Recreation. Before you tonight is a resolution and award for IFB 2025-CP-2505 Civic Center Trail Phase 1. MTF, I'm not going to read it all. This is a federally funded grant. It is an award to Schischler, Inc. For $199,280.39. They were the lowest bidder. And it is for Phase 1. Again, it's federally funded and there is no district match. And I recommend to the board that they approve the resolution as well as the award. Are there any questions?
Nope. We covered that. It's unfortunate we gotta resubmit, for the rest of the money.
I would have loved to do that, yes. So we will, when it reopens,
same thing.
we will resubmit for Phase 2.
All right, great. And just to recap, it's a concrete path over by the splash park and skate park, right?
Yes, actually, I included the map this time in your packet. It runs from Joe Martinez, our newly designed trail, into Civic Center Park. It'll tie into the playground, go around by the splash park, the big pavilion, over to the dog park and the skateboard park. And it is an 8-foot concrete trail.
Nice. Any questions or motions?
I make a motion to approve resolution awarding IFB 2025 CP 2505 Civic Center Trail Phase 1 MTF M087-015 to Schiller Incorporated.
Schistler.
Second.
A motion seconded to approve the contract award to Schistler Incorporated for IFB 2025 CP 2505 Civic Center Drive Trail Phase 1 and the rest. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And what else did you need?
The award letter was attached.
Okay, did we just do both of those for you, or do we?
Yes.
Okay,
You got them both.
good. Okay, next up is the, I believe, the soils report.
Yeah, the geotech report. We discussed that on Friday. The geotech report is in your board packet. It is for the 2 different sites the board had chosen for the indoor pool. The first site was on John Powell and McCulloch, and the second site was located on Assembly and McCulloch. Site 1, again, is approximately 17 acres. And site 2 is at approximately 56 acres. I also included the summary, and tonight we're here to see what the board's wishes are on which site they would like the indoor pool to be designed on.
I looked through this report and read it. It looks to me like both sites are relatively close in expansive soil content, and I think it was moderate.
Yeah, they are both. There's
Right.
only like a $24,000 difference between site 1 and site 2.
So,
It's the infrastructure that is the cost. And the
Right.
only infrastructure that we know of is on the Assembly and McCulloch one, just based on previous site work done for a different project that we got.
for Soaring Eagles.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was actually for Soccer House.
Oh, Soccer House, yeah.
Yes.
You're right.
So that's the documentation that we have.
And we had talked about, it was brought up that Aspen Skiway might be a good alternate and maybe less expensive approach to getting into the pool area. We don't know, but.
We don't know.
We don't know, but it.
That's something that had been brought up, yes.
Yeah.
And based on, maybe, it'll be based on what the county requires. But I believe it was asked, where on the site would I like, or where it would be located?
Right, that was my question.
You're
And-
correct, and that was on Fridays, and I said more to the west, but then Sean brought up that may be off of Aspen Skiway. So we have to look at all of that once a site is selected.
Right, and I brought up that.
Too bad.
That assembly area is accessible by 2 roads.
Right.
Actually, there's a third one in the middle between McCulloch and Research.
Well, that's Aspen Skiway.
That is Aspen Skiway that
Yeah,
we're talking
so-
So you
about.
have Research Aspen
But,
Skiway.
that location definitely gives us room for expansion for a community center and a sports complex in the future.
Yes,
And then potential other businesses coming in that would complement those services in that area, so.
so we're just looking for
We're looking
direction.
direction, make a motion.
Yeah,
Oh, you got a question?
No.
Oh.
I was gonna make a motion.
Right.
I'll make a motion to select Site 2 at Assembly and at the intersection of Assembly and McCulloch for the indoor pool.
A second.
I have a motion seconded to approve the site selection 2, Assembly and McCulloch for the indoor pool. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And while we're still on that, I just wanted to make sure our next steps as we move forward here. And that would be this conceptual design that we had spoke about on Friday. I was asked to get with Asenza and see if we could meet as a meeting in person. She is available this Friday at 10 a.m. If the board is willing to do that, she is willing to do that as well.
Talking about this Friday,
Yes, sir.
10 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
Is there
We
anybody,
would meet here?
Yes, sir.
is there anybody who has a conflict that they are merely aware of? We'll obviously have to
No.
check with Axworthy too.
Not that I'm aware of.
To sit down with the board and make sure we're going the right direction with the conceptual and making sure
Yeah.
we don't,
Expect at least maybe an hour.
I would say about an hour, hour and a half, yeah.
I can make that for sure. Yeah.
I could probably swing 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
Does anybody have an
Fine.
issue if we started earlier and had the conversation for the budget, if we have those numbers and figures?
Oh, sure.
Okay, we'll talk, we can,
Yeah.
That's what we were gonna ask. Yeah, Christian, you beat me to it. I was just coming up to see if the board would be interested in doing a work session or a special meeting, thank you, Bree, on Friday, starting at 9 o'clock, so we could cover both the budget and the conceptual design for the aquatic center.
This Friday? But that only gives us an hour window between.
Yeah, it only gives you an hour for the budget, so it'll be
Exactly.
an hour for the budget.
Yeah, she's gonna be.
That might not be a bad thing.
Only have an hour.
What are you
I would
saying?
much like.
What are you saying?
I would much rather leave a little more time.
I'm not
for the-
saying anything, I'm just saying you have an
for the
hour.
budget.
we could probably start at 8:30 to give us an hour and a half. To be fair, we don't necessarily have to cover everything in the one meeting. That may help if we need to schedule a follow-on and we don't cover everything in the budget.
Yeah.
I anticipate 8:30. Does that work for?
8:30.
Which, this Friday? I'm good. I'm good for this Friday.
This Friday?
That's the
8:30.
14th?
Yes,
Correct.
it is the 14th.
Got nothing.
Okay, we'll confirm with Axworthy, hopefully get him involved as
Budget
well.
/ pool board meeting.
So Carol, let me ask you, are we talking to her about them continuing on with the drawing and
With the drawing that you
just the
had.
drawing? Of the, not the management or full?
No, it's
okay.
just the building itself.
Okay.
That's all we're discussing.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're on the same page, and as she moves forward, that it's included in there. And the board, she's gonna just probably have a timeline and
Yeah.
just talk about a few things. I would assume that that's what she's
Yeah.
gonna talk about.
I-
I haven't really talked to her yet. I just texted her and asked if she was available to meet at all.
I think, and they kind of propose this too, the concept is to take what was the alternative design and ensure that's meeting with any ADA requirements or any adjustments, bring that back to the board before they would then proceed into a full architectural design.
And we're
So this
hoping
is
to do-
just
yes.
establishing the concept. After that, the board would then give direction or identify, obviously, if it was approved, the next steps for that, which is turning into architectural design.
So with
Now,
our
we're
site
not
se-
talking about construction, just designing.
Right. So with our site selection,
Mhm.
we can get that traffic.
We can,
Yeah.
yeah, we can start knowing the site, having that, and the concept means then you can transition to a full contract amendment of this is the final contract for site, concept to produce the final architectural
So
design. which
realistically,
includes-
when can we get both together?
I think we can discuss that Friday, and see what their timeline looks like.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. So it's gonna be a two-layer process. She'll come back with just a conceptual, conceptual.
There we go.
Yes.
uh,
Conceptual?
Right, design, and then we would move on to actual structural design.
This
That is-
first step, confirm we're on the right track.
All right.
That is correct. So we're
And
not,
this is Asenza?
Asenza,
Asenza, okay.
ESSENZA,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
PRV, the pressure relief valve.
Yes, good evening, board again. Here to ask for approval of a resolution to award IFB 2025 WA 2308. This is the installation of 5 pressure pressure relief valve systems, excuse me, to RJ Gleason Construction. The low bid was $173,092. The department would like to add 10% contingency in the amount of $17,309.20. So the total amount would be $190,401.12. And I'd like to add that RJ Gleason has done a few projects for us in the past. They've installed some water mains. They've actually installed some other PRV systems and repaired some for us too. So, yeah, we don't have any qualms.
Bless you. Don't have any worries with that? Okay. We went over this Friday. Friday. You have any particular questions, Ron?
I just wanted to identify to the public that this project actually came under budget.
Yes, absolutely. And that budget
And what was
number
the
was
savings?
That's quite a bit.
Oh, it was less than half of budgeted. I think it was a little over 400,000 was budget.
That's exactly
and this
right,
was, yeah, a
yes.
little-
And so we can attribute that to the job you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate that. Cost savings is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution awarding IFB 2025 WA 2308 to RJ Gleason in the amount of $190,401.12, and that's with the contingency?
That's with contingency, yes.
I second.
A motion second to award the PRV resolution IFB 2025-WA-2308 to RJ Gleason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
It was a $252,386 savings.
Good deal. Next is matters pertaining to water court case.
Thank you, Mr. President. As noted at the outset of the meeting, there is a typo on the case number. The actual case number should be 25 CW 3001. This is a request to the board for authorization to file a supportive statement of opposition in Division 2 Water Court, case number 25 CW 3001. In that case, Town of Florence holds a conditional water right for the Oak Creek Reservoir, a 2,250 acre-foot off-channel reservoir in Fremont County. The conditional water right is before the Division 2 Water Court seeking an every 6 years finding of reasonable diligence. Both Pueblo West Metro and the City of Canyon have been requested by Florence to file these so-called friendly statement of opposition in support of the continuation of the conditional water right. If the water court were to deny the finding of reasonable diligence, the conditional reservoir water right would cease to exist. As you know, Robert Cross is the water lawyer for both Florence and for this district. In this matter, he's precluded from representing the district due to a conflict of interest. He represents Florence, and Pueblo West must exercise its independent judgment in the matter. So representation of this matter in water court would be handled by the Dietza and Davis law firm, of which I'm a member. The conditional water right held by the Town of Florence has been in existence since 1980. The finding of reasonable diligence has been opposed by Penrose Water District and by the Division Engineer for Water Division 2. The matter is set for a status conference before the water judge later this month, which is why we're asking for your decision at this time. The decision before you this evening is only to authorize the intervention in the water court case, to file a statement of opposition in support of the application. District staff have been in contact with the Town of Florence and Canyon City on this matter, And they, staff and I are happy to respond to any questions you may have. If the board wishes to do so, a motion would be to authorize the firm of Dietza and Davis to file a motion to intervene and a supportive statement of opposition to the application of the town of Florence for the conditional water right in case number 25 CW 3001.
You guys have any questions? Well,
We don't have anything to add. That basically covered it.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the statement of opposition in the water court case 25CW 3001.
I'll second.
Was that to approve?
Yeah.
I second the motion.
The amendment. A motion seconded to approve the statement of opposition in water court case 25CW 3001. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Up next is public comments.
I've had no public comments submitted.
Board member, district manager, closing comments. Christian, you want to go?
I think I'm all right. I've done enough talking tonight. I appreciate it.
I got a throw loss in there if you need one.
I got a few of those too.
Okay, anybody else?
I just have one. Could you, you mentioned that study that I had asked for before with it shows Pueblo West versus Kansas City versus
Yeah, fiscal
Florence.
sustainability.
Yeah, that one. Can you bring that to the meeting on Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did share it with you, right?
Yeah.
You have it? Okay.
I have it, but
Okay.
for everybody, I don't know if everybody else has it
Yeah.
or seen it.
If anybody would like, oh, I'm gonna send it out, because I think there's the presentation of itself, the quick synopsis is probably like 20 slides or so, it's not too intense. The long study, I can't remember how long that is, and then there's the Excel spreadsheet, so make sure you get access to all the information, and we'll print out whatever is easiest to be able to distribute on Friday if that works.
Committee reports. Desert Hawk meeting, October 15th. I don't think I was there.
No, you weren't. I was.
Okay.
And Brian wasn't, so. The meeting at the courthouse, October 15th, we pretty much put out an RFQ for qualifications for the golf course manager. The position is going to be available with the current manager retiring. And we discussed what potential upgrades that would be required specifically to some of the services provided at the golf course, the restaurant, purchasing the equipment in the pro shop, tables, chairs, stuff that goes along with that normal daily operation of the golf course. So I know some of the requirements that we were looking for was a PGA professional certification. We did discuss that we would look at potential people who meet the qualifications that could achieve that certification within a 2 or 3 year time span. If they wanted to fulfill the position, they would have a limited amount of time to acquire that certification. So you didn't have to be 100% qualified, but we definitely want somebody who's got experience in operating a golf course and a restaurant. So that was pretty much the meeting. We have another one this Wednesday on the 15th at 10:30. Feel free to come and join us at the old courthouse off of 10th Street. So that completes my comments.
Brian's not here for the Pueblo West Chamber of Commerce. The community meeting, proposed 2026 water rates are October 24th. I had a community meeting. I think we had 2 people show up. Is that right? To talk about the water rates or anything else that they wanted to talk about. hopefully we can continue to do these and get more and more community involvement. I'd really like to see that. I'd really like some feedback from the community. Fire sales kickoff meeting, we had November 3rd. Christian, and you want to give the highlights on that, Christian?
Yeah, just quick, Chief Casota, hi. Kicked it off as far as conversation between our fire department, our district staff. We had a representative from the CPFS?
CPFF.
Colorado.
Professional Firefighters
Thank you.
Association.
Colorado Professional Firefighters Association, and then the local union discuss just generally, hey, here's where we're at. We are ahead of next year in the conversation about what that marketing strategy could be. Kind of got some touch points as far as expectations from district or staff or next steps and evaluation. I think we shared and had conversations about what we had at least anticipated for budget when it comes to the potential for an outside consultant. That will be something that the board obviously will review and identify if they want to as we bring that forward. But just kind of bring everybody together to understand exactly what collaboration could exist and what kind of expectations were for each part of that party. So it's essentially a kickoff meeting. I know we have some due outs on our own just to make sure from the strategic plan and that fire department funding permanency as we review with the board, ballot language, evaluate, and we're working with general counsel to ensure when it comes to fair practice or fair campaign practice laws, we're above the board when it comes to things we can be expected to do. That's probably my synopsis unless you have anything or.
No, I was going to add the lady's name that was the representative. Was it?
Bethany?
Bethany. I really appreciated the comments that she made. You know, she was, I thought, right on target about how, you know, we need to be open and forthright and, you know, say exactly what we need to say and be just open about it. And I thought she did a good job and gave us some good ideas.
If I can add just a quick comment, the ballot initiative for Pueblo Rural Fire last week was passed by their voters for the same sales tax in Pueblo Rural's district. And then one example that she gave us was South Metro, and their initiative passed as well.
They passed it too.
Pretty overwhelmingly in
Yeah,
both, so.
and that one she was concerned with because it was actually a property tax, right? And not a sales tax.
Yeah, theirs was an actual mill levy.
Mill levy increase, so, anyway, good, that's good. Anyway, it was a good time, I mean, it was a well-spent time. Thank you for organizing that. Christmas food drive. We'll accept non-expired canned or dry food from December 1st through the 5th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 340 East Hans Peak Avenue. Holiday Lights Parade is December 6th, 5:30 at Civic Center Park. Is there going to be a parade judge float thing?
Yeah, I think we're gonna meet and discuss here either this week or next, just to confirm, but for historical perspective, we usually ask for 2 board members if they're willing to come and help judge, between 2 board members, district manager. We go through the parades and judge usually for 3 trophies, sometimes best lights, best theme, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we'll reach out and get confirmation of any board members that might be interested.
Yeah, it's
And then-
worthwhile.
And then we'll pitch you in
what day is
a fight, a Thunderdome, if you have more than 2.
December 5th. So I've done it, I think, for the last 2 years, so I would welcome somebody. I mean, I'm more than happy to do it again, but I would welcome somebody to do it because it's pretty cool. You get up and close with those floats. And so. Okay. Anything else? Nothing on the horizon here, so we need to go back into an executive session, correct?
Yes.
So I would entertain a motion to recess our regular meeting, reconvene the executive session.
I make a motion to recess our regular meeting and go into the executive session 24-6-4024 Alpha or A, Colorado Revised Statutes concerning the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interests, 24-6-4024 Bravo or B, Colorado Revised Statutes conferences with an attorney for the public entity for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, 24-6-4024 Echo or E, Colorado Revised Statutes determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations and instruction instructing negotiators on Exhibit A, sales of district-owned property, parcel number 0602340014. Exhibit B, sale of district-owned property, parcel within tract 376. And number 2, 24-6-4024 Bravo, Colorado Revised Statutes, conferences with an attorney for the public entity for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and 24-6-402 for Echo or E, Colorado Revised Statute, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. In Exhibit A, matters related to the ability of Pueblo West to enter into an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with Pueblo Regional Building Department, PRBD. Exhibit B, matters related to the fire response contract for Lake Pueblo State Park. And Section 3, 24-6-402 for Foxtrot or F, Colorado Revised Statutes, personal matters, list staff members. Exhibit A, board, district manager expectations, guidance, documents, and district manager performance review.
Second.
Second, okay, I have a motion seconded to go into executive session for the purposes just now stated. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.